I'm super excited to have this session. We got some awesome co-hosts. Oh, let's start that over. F me, that was terrible. Let's do that again. Welcome to the show, Shawn and Barry.
Hey-o.
Sorry. It's the bourbon.
Also, yeah, definitely f***ed up in the beginning when I said episode 91 because I'm Ron Burgundy and just will read whatever's on the teleprompter.
Try that again. Car crash.
I'm sorry, I got a cough again. Awkward pause. You'll know when the cough is because it sounds like a bomb going off on the audio recording.
Let's replicate.
Oh, I was gonna do this one.
Let's do that again.
Welcome to episode 92. We appreciate you joining us for another episode of the Triple P. Just a reminder that the Plastic Posse podcast is brought to you by Tankcraft, TMA USA, and AK Interactive. It's great to see most of the gang here. So how's everyone doing and what are you working on? I'll go around the room and I'm going to start with Scott.
How's it going, TJ? Yeah, doing all right. Been messing around on the bench with that little Vespid 72nd scale Hetzer. Got a coat of primer and coat of Dunkel Gelb on there and started throwing some washes on it last night in a Zoom with a bunch of the guys and having a good time.
That's good to hear. How about you, Doug? I already know what you've got going on because we were talking before we started recording, but you let the listeners know.
Well, I've been working a little bit on that Messerschmitt that I talked about last time, the 109 G6. I have Hungarian markings for it, so that ought to be fun. I've been kind of going slow because I have a yard project that I'm working on, and it's been nice until this weekend, so I've been outside a lot. Other than that, my 6-year-old grandson, he takes after me because he doesn't want to work on the tank right now. He wants to work on an airplane. So we started him on an Academy 72nd scale P-47D Razorback, which is a surprisingly good little kit other than a very sparse cockpit. And he seems to be having a good time with it.
That's pretty awesome. What about you, JB?
I'm fixing Scott's mistakes, but it's all going good at the bench. I joke. For our listeners, you might have been following on Facebook. I've had some issues with a Leopard, but it's going well. I have Tamiya's new 2A7V that Scott was so gracious to hand over. He built and primed it in lightning speed, especially for Scott, and had a little bit of trouble with primer. I think we all kind of decided it's been the MRP from hell, but essentially for our listeners, it was primed. I painted over it, and then I used some enamel wash, and I think it was a combination of the Tamiya panel liner, which is I think it's a little bit hot. It's a little bit of a hot enamel product, and that leached under the lacquer top coat and reacted with the MRP. So I had some splintering and cracks in the paint, micro cracks. To be honest, you can't really see any on the hull. I've covered them up with some mud. Oh gosh, don't tell a judge. And then on the turret, there's a few, but I think recovery has been pretty good. The only part I sanded and decided to fix was the bore evacuator because it was so apparent. But I hit it yesterday with a little sandpaper, repainted it in NATO black, gave it a filter of earth enamel coats, and it's back to good. So that's been the project on the bench, and I hope to complete the vehicle this weekend and then get started on a little base for it. And then in addition to that, it's on to the B, as you know. So back to you, TJ.
Nice. Yeah. It's a shame about that Leopard. It was looking really good until Scott's primer snuck up on you. I think he set you up. He did that on purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
He's like, I'm gonna put JB in his place. He thinks he's good. Guy. I'll show him. But what about you, Grant?
I've just been working on figures. I just finished up a Orc Rider or Mazog or whatever today or yesterday. Working on a base for that. Been working with Rick Lawler a little bit. He's helping me with the inks. The new AK inks are really nice. Having a great time with those. Other than that, did a Stalingrad figure and did a alpine figure. So just basically taking modeling when I can get it.
Very nice. Yeah, I saw the figure that you had posted in one of the chats this morning. It looks pretty cool. And I guess I'll go ahead and wrap up with me. I've been working on my B as well. And for those that have not put the pieces together yet, that means Bradley. So I convinced a bunch of people to build Bradleys because I have the Magic Factory Bradley that I think I got it right after I got back from Atlanta when we were there in February. I bought it and kind of been looking for a reason to do it. And then it happened to go on Lightning Deal on Sprue Brothers for like $30, which is an absolute steal. So hopefully you guys out there grab that because it's worth full price, and it's definitely worth what Sprue Brothers was selling it for. So I've been working on that, and I'm like, I don't know, almost done building the hull. I'll probably build the turret after we're done with this. And then I've kind of been poking around on a couple other things. I've been working on a whippet that I built for, I think, the turkey shoot that the Model Insanity guys hosted at the end of last year. I built the kit in like a day, and it's just kind of been sitting there ever since. So I've got around to painting that, modulated it up. And then I've also been working on a little 48 scale Crusader that Scott sent my way, which he did not set me up with the primer on that one. That primer was very nice. And I was able to, I had to paint it twice because the first paint I put on it, I hated. So I repainted it, and it is not cracked. So I guess Scott cares about me more than he cares about JB. What it kind of seems like.
Same primer, oddly enough, but yours maybe aged like a fine wine a lot longer than JB's did. I mean, I literally primed that Leopard, threw it in the car, and headed to Denver. So it was just about that bad.
We still love you, Scott.
Yeah, it's okay. We're just never going to let you forget it.
At least you're not Jensen.
But we're going to start go over to a first discussion topic. So I'll kick it over to JB because this one was his and I thought it was pretty good. So I'll let you go ahead and lead the discussion on that.
Thanks, TJ. Yeah. So listeners, this discussion topic I've thought of recently just because I think we all know the Plastic Posse loves every aspect of the social part of this hobby. But I think it's worth noting that I think everyone around the table here appreciates being alone. And really, this topic focuses on the value of being alone. You know, a lot of modelers are alone in their hobby. It's a solitary hobby. We build alone. We buy kits alone. We sometimes, we go to shows alone, and that's okay. And the part of it and the main point of this discussion is there is value in being alone. You know, my best work honestly happens when I'm alone. Some days, all of us experience those times at work where it's just emotionally, mentally, and physically draining. Some combination, if not all of them, almost every day. And, we come home and we want to hang out with our friends. And certainly there's been days where in our group chat with some of us, it's like Zoom tonight. And I just kind of ghost it. And I'm being purposeful, but I don't mean to do it, in a mean way, if that makes sense, where it's just, I'm exhausted from any type of social engagement, and the release is at the bench, and it's being alone, maybe putting on some tunes. Like, good example, yesterday I came home absolutely just floored, and I wanted to hang out. Like, Zach's like, throw up a Zoom. I'm like, yeah. And then I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. I could be a nice person and tell them and not pull a Jackson like AMPS, but certainly it goes around. Sometimes it just feels good. As I mentioned the other night, got home, worked on the Leopard. I put on some Eminem. So I'm thinking like early 2000s, Lose Yourself kind of music, and just jamming out at the bench. And I cherish those moments just as much as, hanging out with friends and BSing. But the whole point of this, and I'd love to get the take of other individuals on the line, or I should say my co-host and online, just the value of being alone in your time at the bench alone. And, some days it's needed, and it just is a great release. So with that, maybe I'll kick it over to you, Scott, and talk about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm a pretty social guy, probably one of the more social guys here, but I feel the same way. And especially you mentioned kind of throwing on some tunes, working at the bench with my hands is very therapeutic. And, man, I'll throw in some Pink Floyd or some metal. And, when you're on a Zoom, that element goes away, and, something that I really enjoy. So, yeah, there's a lot of times where you just kind of, I just want to either focus in on the work, or I just want to kind of lose myself after a hard day at work. So really relate to that. Sometimes just need that. So yeah, the musical element for me, I think is a big deal. But having said that, sometimes I'll also kind of straddle the fence a little bit, and I'll throw a Zoom on with you guys, and then I'll just mute or go off camera and then just work and listen to the conversation, not really engage or participate, but just kind of listen. And that works good. I know a lot of our listeners listen to us at the bench. I don't really do podcasts at the bench. It doesn't work for me. I tend to need to focus in, but anyway, yeah. So I'm the same way. Totally get what you're laying down.
No, and that's a really good point too. There's been nights where, gosh, I'm airbrushing and I feel bad, but I like you said, Scott, I'll go on mute and I'll just listen to people. And I think what's great, and when you have a great group of friends, is when you can do that. There, and everybody embraces the silence, and it's a natural progression of conversations. There's an understanding amongst the individuals, like, oh, he's doing something he's really focused on, and just easy ground rules with that. With that, I'll kick it over to you, Grant. What are your thoughts?
I definitely think the same way. But when I do, I like working quietly, so I don't even use music a lot of the times. So I just like to turn off everything and kind of it really is just turning off your brain and turning off, everything in the day, the week, the month, or whatever, and just getting extremely focused into something that is not requiring a payment or, a deadline or something like that, where you can just build and follow instructions and have a good time with yourself. Like everybody said, I love the Zooms too. And I like to be able to listen to them. Not always there all the time, but when I can be, I like to be there. But I like to sit back and listen. There's some really great information that's passed. There is some fantastic information that's passed back and forth. And, sitting back and listening, and you pick up on that. But, I'm a little bit quieter of a guy, I guess, when it comes to this. So I do like the alone time. It's my time. I don't get a lot of it because of, life. But when I do build, it's really special to me. And I think that's the key for me, is that the quiet time is like a very special time for me, because there's a lot of noise out in this world. And sometimes it's nice just to shut everything off and just kind of follow, what you're doing and just having a good time without, any distractions. There you go.
No, for sure. I mean, in the turbulent world we live in, noise is something that's plentiful. So like you said, Grant, it's really nice to just sometimes come home, be in a quiet space, find your center and just get after it. No, I completely understand that. Doug, what are your thoughts?
I'm very much an introvert, and so I do enjoy my quiet time at the bench. But for me, quiet isn't no music. It's usually quieter music, because I want to block out what is outside of my room. I want to block out, the TV upstairs or the kids playing outside, or sometimes my son snoring down the hall. I just put on something quiet, or classical music is a favorite of mine. Movie scores, anything from John Williams, the original Star Wars stuff, is still among my favorite. Lord of the Rings, a lot of Hans Zimmer stuff, and things like that will kind of put me in a zone, especially if I'm working on sci-fi stuff. If I'm working Star Wars, then of course I'm playing Star Wars music. I do spend a lot of time just in my room trying to concentrate on what I'm doing and think about things that are important to me and shut out the world. I mean, I don't need what the world wants to give me most of the time. So I think we're all kind of on the same page there. Although one thing that usually when I come down here by myself, I spend a lot of time cleaning before I have a space to work.
That's a good point. I try to clean up as much as I can after every session. But Doug, you mentioned something interesting there. The music with the night of modeling, in terms of what you're doing or the subject matter. It's really interesting you bring that up, because sometimes I'll listen to some Eminem and I think it's based on what I'm doing. But other nights, Hans Zimmer, I'll even mention John Williams, where it's much more kind of a classical music mix. It's dare I say, a little bit more therapeutic in terms of flow, if that makes sense. And maybe those nights with that music, I tend to think if I'm painting a figure or stowage, it's like more flowing, and it gets you almost in a rhythmic type of action. I don't know. Maybe I'm waxing too philosophically, but I echo you there, Doug.
That makes perfect sense to me, especially since, that music's been with me 1977. I'm a 7-year-old boy, and I got the soundtrack as soon as they started producing it. And Yeah, it's been on the top of my playlist ever since. And they do take me into a good relaxing. I'm relaxed and I'm happy, and that really helps the quality of my work, I think.
That's a good point, both of you. I mean, you think about when you're painting, certain things that the music is, you're affected by the music. So you want something that's more soothing, more, relaxing, more flowing, as JB said. And when I think about, when you're painting like a figure or doing detail on like stowage, like you said, you want something quieter, something more smooth, something flows that you get the idea. But when you're not, when you're throwing mud on the side of a vehicle or a bass, you want something like Led Zeppelin, Foo Fighters, something like that, I would think. And I think that's a very good, that's a very good point, that I think it does change. The music can change or does change with what you're doing on the bench.
That's interesting. I'm interested to hear what TJ has to say about this, but I buy a lot of physical media. It's getting harder and harder to find, but I don't usually stream. It's not really my jam. I'd rather have the disc and then I can write it in my computer or whatever. But I have a old-fashioned, old-school, big old boombox on my bench top. I also have a docking port for my phone that I don't hardly use. But I'll get a brand new album and I'll go down to the bench and I'll put it in. And what happens is inevitably when I go to my bench, I'm usually there for hours. And so I'll listen to an album over and over, and music for me evokes memories. And so as I'm listening to the music and everything, I'll get memory responses later on of a project I was working on or something like that. But yeah, when I discover a new record by a band, I just recently bought the latest Chevelle album. I've been listening to that on heavy rotation down on my bench, and I really like that. And, the other thing is music for me, you'll realize, oh, I've started this album over like 4 or 5 times. I've been down here for a while, so I just kind of get lost. I don't know, TJ, what do you think?
Well, I'm what they call an extroverted introvert. I'm not. My wife may disagree, but I'm not fully introverted. That's evidenced by the fact that I have a number of friends that I converse with a lot, but I still find people draining for the most part. And I'm sure some of my friends have noticed that sometimes I just don't really say anything. Not that I don't want to talk, but a group chat will be going and I don't really respond to anything unless specifically asked a question, because I just don't feel like talking about anything. And I go to bed early too, so a lot of Zooms are not that like Mark will throw one up or Eric Brubaker will throw one up or JB will throw one up, but you guys are all on a different time zone than me. I'm on East Coast time, and I don't work as hard physically anymore, but I still wake up early. I'm at work by 6 o'clock. I wake up at like 4:40 so I can shower and get dressed. And sometimes I work out in the morning too, so I'll wake up even earlier. Yeah, so I miss out on all that, which is fine with me because a lot of times I just don't feel like it, especially during the week. I'm tired. I got to deal with everyone that I work with or that works for me and solving their problems and managing all that, and it can be draining. And sometimes I just want to come home, and I don't even sit at the bench as much anymore, I've noticed. And it's fine. I still get a lot done. But yeah, sometimes I just want to be left alone, even from the people that I like the most, even my wife and kids.
Well, I think that's the key to hobbies, right? I mean, I think one of the main components is we do them because they help us relax and they help us unwind, and they allow us to have some quality time.
And as a sidebar, since we kind of talked about it, and just because I know it bothers Scott, but no, I don't listen to music when I model at all, ever. I listen to music when I drive and when I lift weights. That's when I listen to music. That's the only times I listen. And I love music. Absolutely love music. And since I'm not a boomer, I don't care about the physical media anymore.
Ouch. I'm not a boomer. I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that old.
I know, I'm just busting your balls. Scott knows I have an extensive vinyl collection, but I don't care about CDs anymore. I mean, look, MP3s, they don't sound as good as CDs, and it's just a matter of fact. But because of the way MP3s and audio files work, it's a sacrifice that's made, so they take up less space. But I just don't care about CDs anymore. I just I got tired of jewel cases, and I used to have stacks, those big stacks where there'd be like all of them all lined up, and I'd have them alphabetically by my bands and all this crap. And just give me iTunes, just give me Apple Music. I don't care. I don't even listen to Spotify or any of that crap. It's just iTunes, Apple Music. That's what I want to listen to. I know what I like, and I like to listen to what I like to listen to, but not when I model. So actually, sometimes here lately, I've just been listening to nothing, just silence. A lot of times I would put on like a YouTube video. If I'm not in a Zoom or chatting with whatever, I'll put on a YouTube video. But here lately, I've only been getting, I don't know, maybe a half an hour of bench time. I just don't feel like looking for a video to listen to. So I'll just listen to nothing. And it's actually not that bad, truth be told. And like you, Scott, I don't listen to podcasts when I model either, which I guess is weird coming from people that do modeling podcasts. But yeah, I listen to those in the car too. Not when I work out, just in the car. That's my traveling stuff. Traveling listen.
Well, the danger with listening to podcasts at your bench is you might be entertained, and you wouldn't want to, be entertained.
Yeah, by all those entertainers.
Yeah, I guess I'm the same way. Since we're on podcasts, modeling podcasts, I only listen in the car as well. I rarely listen to it at the bench. I find that it just goes better with a car ride. It's almost like somebody's there with you. So yeah. That's usually where I'm listening to them as well.
Now, every once in a while, I will listen to them at the bench. Like if I'm listening to one and I'm driving home, and I know when I get home, I'm going to get down to the bench, and they were talking about something that I am interested in and want to continue listening to that, then yeah, I'll put in my earbuds and at least finish that segment, because as we've explained, you can just press the pause button and come back to it later, which a lot of people still have a hard time with and have not understood. Oh, it's 3 hours long. Like, yeah, okay, but you don't have to listen all 3 hours at once.
Yeah.
So I'll do that, and I'll listen to a segment. Or if I know like they're interviewing someone I want to listen to, I'm in the middle of the interview, I'll finish the interview when I get home and I'm sitting at the bench. Or if I'm like going for a run, then I'll listen to podcasts then, because they say you shouldn't listen to music when you run, I guess, because you try to match the beat of the music. And I listen to like fast music typically. So, and I'm not a fast person, so I wear myself out. So that's another time when I listen to podcasts. But yeah. But back to the original topic. Yes, I do enjoy being down here by myself. It is fun. I like it. I like closing the door because I'm in a separate room and being left the hell alone.
Let me ask, before we wrap up, let me ask you this. I mean, Doug and I have modeled together in person, and Josh Buck lives about a mile away. We've done some modeling there. We go to club meetings where we kind of all break out and model. I mean, what about modeling with other people? You guys find that to be kind of more or less equivalent to a Zoom call, or maybe a little bit different experience when you're in person with somebody?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we do at our AMPS meetings. We have a solid 3 hours of just a build meeting, as someone was derisively mentioned to some other people about our AMPS meetings. But that's what they are. Yeah, it's 3 hours of just building bullshit. That's what we call it, because that's what we do. And I have a couple projects that I only bring to that, right? Like that's what I bring. And I work on that. And then when I get to the point where I don't need to build it anymore, because I don't want to bring any paint or anything, then yeah, I'll just bring something else and just build it. I like having built models in the backlog in case I want to paint something. But I do enjoy that. That is really fun. Of course, part of also what makes it fun is I know when we're done with our AMPS meeting, I'm going to go drink like 3 beers at the brewery across the street and then probably go eat dinner with my buddies. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'll put up with lugging my crap around if I can go drink beer and, eat a pizza or whatever when I'm done.
JB, sorry to hijack your topic, but I mean, I know you've got a great community over there. What about that for you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Just like TJ, the commies folks, that club is all around building. And just like TJ, there are certain builds that are dedicated to that, or a certain point of the build, I'll say as well, because I'll be honest, I'm not very efficient. I don't do anything that requires, high focus when we go to these meetings, because let's be honest, you're distracted. The most important thing is you're there with your friends. You're having conversations, you're laughing. The last thing you want to do is be, precision painting a figure or something. But I find that those meetings, I'll do basic construction, maybe do some basic weathering. But, efficiency drops, but the social aspect and being with those folks, that's the most important thing. There's countless times of, we hung out here. I remember we went over John Everett's house. It was like me, I think Kreiner was there. Steve Baker drove down and we were like, oh yeah, we'll bring something over to build. So we brought our boxes in to build. We went into John's basement, started eating pizza, and 4 hours later, we haven't touched our models because we're just going around his basement talking about his tools. And, it's just things like that. That's so much fun. And having that flexibility of like, hey, if we build, cool. If not, cool. But that tends to pull you back into the social side. But I do think it's a little bit different than Zoom just because you're physically with each other and conversations are, it's almost like being a remote employee versus in person. Yeah, you're certainly adding value and there's conversations to be had. But in person, you can't substitute for it. That's why I love, we talk about this subject and being alone, but on the exact opposite side, that's why I love those moments where it's almost you've saved up, you've put you've been banking, you have your piggy bank of alone time and, saving up for your friends. And then you go hardcore for a weekend of just like pure talking and pure hanging out, pure getting to know each other more, just like AMPS is a great example. And then, the next week I'm at home and I want to be alone for a good number of nights just to recharge and refill up that piggy bank, the social piggy bank, I guess you could say.
That totally makes sense. I mean, after I always find out that the 48 and 48 is a weekend I look forward to all year long. And then the Monday after that, I am wiped out. I don't want to talk. I just want to, like you said, go down in the hobby room and just, shut the door and just be away from it all. Grant, you build in person down there in your area?
No, I wanted to bring that up. I don't have any groups down here that do build in person groups, which I think, my opinion, sucks. Because I think that's like JB and TJ just said. I mean, there's a lot of camaraderie there. There's a lot of fun that can happen and stuff like that. It's nice that they have meetings and stuff like that. And there's no disrespect to the groups out here, but it's just going and showing and telling and then walking around and leaving kind of sucks. I think that for those kind of meetings and those kind of groups and those kinds of people, yeah, it's fun to have, people come over, sit down, bullshit while you're making, excuse my language, bullshit while you're making a model or whatever. And that's fun. I mean, I love doing that. That's what we do. But, and JB had a great point. There's been lots of times where I've had one or two guys come over here and we don't even get to we don't even open the boxes. We're just talking about other stuff and looking at stuff. And, it's crazy. I do wish they had that kind of group around here that was a builder group. And
you bring up a really interesting point, Grant. And I think we all around the table have experienced this. TJ mentions his new club, and I'll caveat, key is new.
Yep.
Newer clubs, more recently established clubs are going towards pure building. Growing up, I went to IPMS meetings, since I could walk, basically. Don't get me wrong. Those folks are awesome. Really enjoy hanging out with them that once a month. But it was never a build session. It was much more of a formal meeting where you have your business up front, you have your show and tell. Sometimes people will be selling stuff and then you go for pizza beer afterwards. So that's consistent, at least. But the format of the clubs has certainly evolved, I think. And a good example I'll show, keeping this conversation organic, is when I moved to Dayton, Ohio, I went to their IPMS club, and it was like the traditional club where, there's the core group. I'll be honest, I wasn't very well accepted there. And that's a whole nother topic around clubs and acceptance. But that club was very focused on business, show and tell, done. It was very regimented. And a group of us started another club called the Right Field Scale Modelers. And it was all around every session. We're just going to come hang out and build the business. If you want to talk business, we can talk about that another time. We're in the black. We can afford the space, and that's all we need to talk about. There was separate meetings for show committees, but the focus of the club meeting was all around building. And in those moments, people did come and they were alone, like they'd sit off in the corner and build and maybe come engage. Others would just talk the whole time and not get much building done. So I think that's a really good point brought up by you, Grant and TJ, that newer clubs, I think there's an evolution in scale modeling clubs where it's much more engaging and less just bureaucratic nonsense. Because who wants to go to a business meeting to talk about a hobby? I mean, certainly not me. I don't need to spend 15 minutes on our checkbook and, donating. Donating is important, but like, oh, we have this much money. Let's talk about, how we're going to spend it on nothing. So anyway, I'll pause.
It's a good point. I will caveat something real quick, though, that I've started to go to a local Warhammer group painting.
Yeah.
Those guys, that is fun. I tell you what, it's only like 15 people, but it's just painting and it's just talking and that's fun. And I guess that's why I get so disappointed when I go to the other meetings, is that there's just, like you said, it's just like, okay, from 9 to 9:35, we're going to talk about this. From 9:35, we're going to go to the bathroom, and then we're all going to. So I don't know. That's my opinion on it.
I would assume on those Warhammer painting groups, you could probably pick up a lot of good tips.
Oh, it's
watching other people, having them show you, because I learn so much better when I actually do the work, but having somebody tell me how to do it isn't going to help. But somebody showing me how to do it is something else.
Yeah, I agree. That's with anything, though. It's, we talked about people, we're not going to mention any names, having trouble with tracks on their beads. And if you show them that, that's going to, if you show them how to do it, but they're sitting right there, it's definitely going to help. And it's definitely.
Yeah, Grant, I think we've had conversations at MMSI with Gary Baker where he's trying to get something like that put together in Southern California. And I just finished the latest small subjects where they were talking about Verco's Vault with Penny, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but where they're getting together and painting and kind of having open nights and everything, and really trying to kind of reach out to other groups using that. So
the Vegas area alone is really good for that. Joe and Jay and all those guys, all the groups, the Gundam groups, are very active groups where they sit down and they all work together on models. They bring other groups in and have build nights, and my hat's off to that whole area out there. That is one area that I think that a lot of organizations can look at and build a future off of. That kind of interaction, that kind of new process.
Yeah, Doug and I used to get together a lot more. We should probably do that. I want to mention John Vickus. He moved to Salt Lake City from Ohio, and he had a group back in Ohio called the Divine Scale Society. Is all 72 scale, but he's kind of established that same dynamic here in Salt Lake, and we'll all go over to his place or go over to somebody's house, and we do the pizza thing, but we also get together and build and paint, and it's great. I know we're kind of a million miles away from where this topic started with John, but it's interesting how we all experience this. And, sometimes we need to be more productive and alone, and sometimes we need to have company.
Oh, for sure, Scott. And I love the organic nature of our discussion topics. We can certainly have an anchor topic, but I think it's really fun to see where it takes us. And certainly it's taken us a few places on this one. Listeners, if you're interested in contributing to the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to start a topic on our Facebook group. I actually love that. We have a couple people that really latch onto a topic and start another discussion and bring in points that we haven't considered on the podcast. So feel free to grab one, whether it's modeling alone, the evolution of scale modeling clubs, or just how you enjoy to work at the bench in terms of music preference. Feel free to drop us a comment and plop a B on there, if you know what I mean. So with that, I'll kick it back to TJ.
The Plastic Posse podcast is sponsored by Tankcraft. In addition to their awesome cutting mats, Tankcraft also makes some incredible scale modeling tools for your workbench. Want to keep extra thin cement off your bench and in the bottle where it belongs? Check out Tankcraft Glue Base, designed to stop glue spills in their tracks. The glue base is made from solid mill aluminum and comes with a stable rubber base pad and can accommodate most square and round cement bottles. And while you're there, check out their line of cutting mats and other unique modeling tools. Remember, Posse listeners get 15% off their first order by using the code POSSE15. So head on over to tankcraft.com. That's TANKRAFT.com. Right on. Let's go ahead and take a walk around the Posse group and see what stuck out to everyone. Scott, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I was kind of looking through it, and the model that really caught my eye is a model I'm interested in, but it's our good buddy Martin Holst, and he's done the Wingsy Wings Claude, and love the model, love the scheme, and he really crushed this one. So great job, Martin. Really, I'd love to have one of those on my shelf. It's inspirational. So good job. Doug, what about you? What caught your eye?
Well, I am looking at Jake McKee's Battlestar Galactica diorama. What he's done is he is built from scratch the hangar bay of Galactica. This is the reboot Galactica with a Cylon Raider, the captured Cylon Raider that Starbuck brought back, and it's hanging from straps from the sealant from the rigging, and and he hasn't put the crew in it yet at this point. But man, this thing is amazing. Just beautiful work. The ship looks really good, and the hangar itself is really, really cool. He's got it lit, and he's even shared on our page a link to his build book for his diorama on his blog. So if you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. He'll take you step by step, and it's pretty cool. Check it out. Grant, what have you seen on the page?
He's seen the mute button.
I'm muted.
Son of a. I like Bill Moore's VK4502. It's was an unsuccessful version of it's by Porsche. Could build cars but can't build tanks. It's an unsuccessful version, basically a Ferdinand or an Elephant, whatever you want to call it, with a Porsche King Tiger 2 turret on the back of it. It's got some really, really beautiful color to it. It's got the Panzer Gray or Panzer Blue, whatever your preference is. It's got a red stripe down the center of the turret, followed by a yellow on each side of it, just a pinstriping, basically. It looks really good. It's just a really good model, just really good paint job and really good width. And, my hat's off to you, Bill.
Yeah, we saw that in person at AMPS. I loved it. It was one of my favorite models there, obviously, because of the color. So it's pretty dope.
Yeah, I was wondering if it made it to AMPS. It's great. TJ, what do you like?
Frank Perone's T-3476 Butte Panzer. Frank is an awesome dude, just one of the good ones for sure, and he's a damn good modeler. And his what if ISU 152 turret thing that he built that we saw in Atlanta, then he brought to AMPS Nats, was awesome. And he's been working on this Butte Panzer, and he's getting pretty close. I'm not the biggest fan of Butte Panzers. It's just not my thing. But this one is really cool. It's a T-3476, which I love. They're cool. And they do look interesting in Panzer Gray. This is actually Panzer Gray, but an interesting version of Panzer Gray. It's not true Panzer Gray. Sorry, Bruce. It doesn't look like a black brick, which is what Panzer Gray would really look like. He put some nice color into it, but he kind of went with a more neutral Panzer Gray tone. Yeah, it's really cool. It's covered in stowage and extra tracks and all this other stuff, and it's awesome. Yeah, Frank's a good dude, and his models are freaking sweet. And last but not least, JB, what did you see?
Surprise, surprise. I found something in tritone. So Mossy Harley's Panzer IV looks really nice. Love the work he's done with the figures and stowage. So awesome work. Just want to highlight him. I haven't seen his work posted too much in the Posse, so happy seeing popping it to the top of the list for me. So yeah, so that was for me on the Plastic Posse group page. And like we always mention, please share your work. Please enter into the discussion and bring your experience, your opinions, and anything and everything in between. We love talking to our listeners online. So with that, we'll go into a special segment on the AMPS International Show in South Bend, Indiana. Some of us from the Posse had the luxury of attending, and we missed our co-hosts here. Myself and TJ were able to attend. We certainly missed Doug, Scott, and Grant. But also in this segment, we have Doc, longtime listener, good friend, and first time on the Posse. So I'm glad our lawyers could sort that out. We have iBones models, and then Scott joined us as well for this discussion. So it was very fruitful, gave an overview of the show that we know and love, and we're looking forward to Camp Hill already next year. Welcome, listeners, to a special segment on the AMPS International Show. I'm super stoked to come to you today with 4 other folks, 3 of which were there, and one, unfortunately, is amply named himself FOMO on this Zoom. So I'll start with him. Scott Gentry, how you feeling today? Thanks for joining us, and appreciate you living out one more day vicariously through us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's good to join you guys and hear a little bit more about the show with some good friends. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. In addition to Scott, I have TJ with me, another host of the Triple P. TJ, how are you today?
Pretty good.
Outstanding. And in addition to that, we have iBones Models here. Great guy, best guy. How are you today, Ian?
To quote the Sir Jensen Taylor, absolutely fantastic.
Oh, wow. I think there's a spot for you if, Jensen decides to take a leave of absence. That was really good. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we've talked about him a lot on the show. This is the first time appearance. And Doc, how are you? Scale Model Doc, I should say, of Instagram fame. How are you today, sir, from New England?
living the dream. Scott finally opened the wallet and paid my fee for an appearance. So here I am. Hope it's worth what you paid.
Seriously, the doctor of reels. He's a hard get.
Yeah, geez, oh man, I'm glad the lawyers could sort out the contract, and we're here today. I know we have no touch subjects, and there's exclusivity with this interview and commentary, so we appreciate your flexibility in that. So let's jump right into it. As I mentioned today, we're going to be talking about the Armor Modeling and Preservation Society's international show. It was held between April 11th to the 13th. In South Bend, Indiana. Really fun time. I have a few folks on here that were at the show, and we have a bunch more to talk about. Like I said, it was over 3 days. First show that I've been to in a while, and it's the first show that they've had. Oh gosh, this is the closest it's been to the West, so I think it drew a lot of people that don't typically go. But with that, I'll just take a pause and go around the room. In terms of getting to South Bend, it's a little town. There's a small university there called Notre Dame, but in terms of getting there, I was originally supposed to drive, but ended up going via air just because of work restrictions. But with that, I got to give a big shout out as we start to Mark Bradley, saved my ass again. He took 8 of my 12 models in a car with Eric Brubaker and his son, and they made the journey across starting Wednesday, and I flew in on Thursday. But that's how I got there. TJ, I think you took off Thursday morning to get there?
Yeah, I hit the road. I don't know, I think about a little after 4 a.m. It's like a little less than a 9-hour drive from where I live in Virginia. It's pretty much like right down the Pennsylvania and Ohio Turnpike. It's the easiest way to get there. Yeah, I was supposed to have a wingman. Our buddy Jackson was supposed to go with us, and he backed out Wednesday morning. So less than 24 hours before we left. Yeah, so I made the drive solo, which was fun. I met up with Pat Brown somewhere in Ohio at a service station off the turnpike, and we had a donut and a cup of coffee, chatted for a little bit. Then we both got back on the road, and I think I made it there. It was like a little after 1, or maybe not even, maybe a little before 1. I made a really good time, so it wasn't a bad drive.
Yeah, you pulled up as soon as we arrived at the Airbnb, which was really nice. And Aaron Cook, he picked me up at the airport. And as you mentioned, Jackson told you Wednesday, but he officially told us in the group on Thursday. And it was no crap, man. We're sitting here at lunch with your driver, and you're not with us. So I appreciate the update. Spoiler alert, we already knew.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. It was like, I don't know, 2:00, probably when we're eating lunch at a bar. Had 2 or 3 beers, or we're done eating, and he drops a message in our group chat. Oh, sorry guys, I'm not going to make it this weekend. I'm like, oh, really? I hadn't noticed. I didn't drive almost 9 hours by myself.
So another group coming across the United States, except from the southerly route. I feel like we're attacking like Fortress Europe or something here. So we had the Italian campaign in the south, and that was led by Ian. So talk about who was in your squad, and I think one of them's online right now.
Obviously, I live in Indianapolis now, so out of everyone that joined, I had probably the shortest total distance from front door to front door, home to Airbnb. But on Wednesday, Grizz drove up from good old Jonesboro, Tennessee, or the outskirts of such, came up and was going to crash at my place. So he showed up, got to meet my baby boy, and we made tacos, which was pretty cool. And then had to, give him some culture. But then he crashed for the evening. I told him the price of the stay was him to show me the ways of soldering photo etch, because I cannot figure that out. And so we sat around my kitchen table after we put the baby boy down at like 10:30. And my wife, Allie, and I both watched with bated breath as Grizz started soldering some photo etch and running us through how it works, and found out kind of where I was lacking. Main thing is using a piece of wood is like where your stuff sits on, not a 1, 2, 3 block that's made of steel, because, you got to heat these pieces up. And who would have thought a big block of steel would suck the heat out of whatever it's sitting on? Not me. I'm a liberal arts guy. I'm not a tradesman. So that didn't occur to me. But anyway. So I made Grizz watch Everything is Illuminated, that Elijah Wood movie about going to Ukraine and tracing ancestry and stuff, which that was a good one. But other than that, we woke up the next day. We went and, doing the proper Tennessee thing. I took Grizz to the shooting range, and We were those guys and shot an M1 Garand and an indoor range at 75 feet and made everybody super happy about that. And then at around noon, we got to pick Doc up, which that will be the transition to Doc's journeys.
Yeah. So I was coming from Lexington near Boston. And if you look at flights to South Bend, you can't get there from here. It's kind of the answer. It's one of those. You can make 4 changes with 7 hours of layovers for $2,000. And the drive's not great. I think 18, 20 hours, which is above my desires or ability to drive. So I worked Wednesday night till almost midnight. And then Ian and I had found a flight a couple weeks prior that was just Boston to Indianapolis, where he is. It was cheap and quick and, one flight. So being the gentleman that he is, and I use the term loosely, he and Grizz picked me up and let me sit in the crammed back seat of their car. And the highlight, though, was I got to go meet his little son and his wife, the better part of his family, which was fun, and see his stash. And then after a little break, the 3 of us made our way north through fields of mud to South Bend. What was that, 2.5 hour drive or so? Wasn't too bad. I might have fallen asleep halfway through just to preserve my sanity.
That's awesome. So, listeners, the point of just talking about our journeys, they're as different as how we model. And I think I want to encourage listeners, make it more than just the show. As you hear us talking about this, it's not only the event, but the journey to get there. And I think a great example is, Doc, Jonathan Anderson, Ian, and Grizz all meeting up south of the show for a day or two, getting to know each other more as people, Ian sharing his home, sharing his family. And I think that's what I really want to hit home here is, look for opportunities that are outside the show to get to know each other more. And I think as we talk about this show, I really enjoyed this show because it was an opportunity to get to know each other. We've gone to shows before. IPMS Nationals is a great example where the event itself is massive. There's a ton of people there. And unfortunately with that comes just a lot of time sucks, and not in a bad way by any means. But I felt like this show was the first show where we got to know each other just a little bit more. We spent the whole time in an Airbnb together. Certainly we had a party and a bunch of people over. But outside of that, going to lunch, breakfast, dinner together, just got to know each other more as friends. And I don't know if anybody has a comment on that.
How wild is it that this hobby brought together an emergency room doctor, a guy for an auto finance company, and a guy that works at a water treatment facility in rural Tennessee, that we're all together in a car driving up to South Bend, Indiana, of all places. I would expect maybe running in, like having that combination of people in an elevator in like New York City, but nope, rural Indiana,
And you met on the internet.
Yeah, we met on the internet, exactly.
Some guys I met on the internet. And I kept waiting for you to get struck by lightning as a graduate of the Ohio State University, being that close to Notre Dame.
I had to be careful, man. You hear people yelling OH and I just had to bite my tongue.
Yeah. So with that, getting to the show, I think it's certain that everybody arrived, Thursday evening. Nuke Man Mike showed up super late on Thursday, but regardless, we all had an opportunity to stop over at the show. The venue was right in downtown South Bend, as mentioned. We stayed at Airbnb probably about a mile away. Not bad at all. And it was super cheap. But the show itself was held at a beautiful venue downtown, huge venue. The Mojo guys on their last episode stated it could host the IPMS Nationals. And I agree. I mean, it was big, bright, and just awesome. And I think some of the vendors there, most of them were all great. But, talking about the show itself, what's interesting, AMPS is different than IPMS Nationals. Maybe I'll turn it over to, I'll volunteer Doc to talk about the registration process and how the models are essentially prepped for judging.
Yeah, so we got in and we put all our models out on the table in the Airbnb, which was fun. Got to look at everyone, talk about it. And then I thought we were going to register the next day, but you guys just had to get over there before it shut. So I was gluing antenna and straightening tracks from my airplane box. But I got to say, I like the AMPS system. So they have an online portal, with your membership where you go on before the show and you can fill out all your forms. It's kind of nice. You have a master form. You say, I'm going to enter 6 models, and then you're allowed to, fill in 6 more forms, one for each model, and kind of type in your entry info. And they already have that right on their end, which is nice. You can attach some additional research and all. But basically, once you fill everything in, it lets you print it out at home. Or if you don't own a printer, you beg your friend to print it or use your work printer. wise move. And basically you just show up in line and you have your printed out forms and you have your models, and they go through them with you, and each one you put down on a tray, you know, like a little plastic dinner tray or the little kind of trays a lot of us build on to hold our parts. And they kind of verify that you're in the right category. It's the right model. They got the right number. They put a sticky on it and they walk it in the back, and it goes in a big table waiting to be judged. And honestly, it was pretty darn seamless. I don't think any of us had any issues with registration with like all 10 of us and 100 models or something. The guy in front of me had brought, I believe, 34 models in like 4 huge Tupperwares that he brought in on a rolling dolly. So it was a minute getting him registered, but that was about the only delay I saw.
Yeah, I got to echo that. The nice part about AMPS was the whole digital registration system and paperwork. It was great. I mean, it was a very simple, straightforward, you know, field settings in a HTML format. And then as Doc mentioned, it just pumps out these PDFs with the master form and then has the registration all automatically checked and everything. So major hats off to them. There's a lesson to be learned at other big organizations there, I think, because it made it super seamless and easy. As Doc mentioned, the check-in process, very straightforward. They verify everything, throw it on a little tray and send it in the back. And I think what we noticed is Friday, there was a major backlog, and that's typical. I mean, you're going to have most of your entries enter Friday, but Thursday and Friday morning. So I think all of our work, it got out, probably Friday afternoon, I think. TJ, that sounds about right?
Yeah, it was sometime Friday during the day. And to kind of talk about that, I think I mentioned it last year when I talked about the AMPS Nats in Camp Hill. It's the one thing I don't like about AMP shows is the tables are empty a large portion of the show, which in a way is kind of cool because then every time you go walk the tables, there's more stuff there. But then like at the beginning of the show, there's hardly anything on the tables. So you're like, cool, there's 30 models to look at over like 14 categories, right? So it is like both good and bad. To me, it's more annoying, but like, you know, by the end of the day, Friday, the tables are pretty full because most stuff comes in on the Friday because the show technically ends on Saturday afternoon. So they have to be done judging, I think by like noon or maybe 1. I don't know. It's pretty early in the afternoon on Saturday. So they got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, I agree with TJ. That's like the one negative I would have is compared to IPMS Nats. And whereas at IPMS Nats, one of my favorite like random thing to do is walk around the contest room with someone else for a little while and like trade different people and look at their models or just look at a category that we both are interested in and just, you know, talk models, right? You know, get on your knees, really squint at them and stuff. I walked around with like Dukes or Panzermeister, or Justin Lynch showed me his models last year, which was really fun for like 20 minutes. And you can do that at AMPS, but you need to wait basically till like Saturday morning or late Friday night to do it. So just plan for that, I'd say. I think it's a worthy trade-off for their judging system. But if you're planning on looking at a bunch of models Friday morning, that's not what you're going to be doing.
I think it's also that style is kind of rough on your wallet too, because the vendor's hall is right next to where that stuff is. So of course, you know, you're going to have models coming out all the time. So if you want to see everything, anytime, guaranteed, anytime you go into that display area, there's going to be something new. Well, then after that, you can pop over to the vendor area and breeze through it. So if you're a vendor hearing this, considering going to AMPS, there's literally, you're not going to be seeing everything at one time if you're going there to look at models. And then once you're done with that, okay, I've seen everything. Now I've seen what's new. I'm going to go breeze through the vendor hall, see if anything jumps out at me. So you're going to get somebody that's literally for a combined total of like of 60 minutes of viewing your wares over that time, because, you know, you're going to be going back there. I mean, I think we as a group constantly were saying, all right, let's go check out what's new on the table. You know, we'd go to lunch. All right, let's go back and see what's on the table now.
Yeah, I think I'll echo what everyone's saying. I think that is an opportunity for AMPS. It was discussed on other podcasts. Maybe it was Mojo, but they noted, is there a way to maybe have the Ramrod staging area public access? Yes, you're transporting models, maybe more, but I think you're probably just transporting them more, just a greater distance, because you're still putting them on a table and staging them. What if that table was, along a wall or something outside where it's like, hey, these are pre-staged, they haven't been judged, but you can at least look at them. I think it echoes what a lot has been said, because the tables were empty, Friday morning to, Friday afternoon, and they finally got caught up. But I mean, I saw a picture, gosh, in the back, there must have been 400 or 500 models on the table waiting to be judged. And I would love to see them. So again, I know it's logistically, they'll have to be planning for it. Every venue is different. But that could be an opportunity, just as TJ and Doc mentioned, where it'd be nice to see them just as soon as you get there, because if you're a vendor, you actually love it, like Ian said, because the tables are empty. You got one place to go, and the vendor room is it. But maybe there's a happy compromise, but that's something certainly you can do. And and we mentioned the term ramrod for our listeners. Doc had stated they put your little thing on a tray, they go stage it. That's ramrod station, and then they'll pull it into judging. And those judging teams are composed of 4 people, one of which is a table captain, and they go through the scoring sheets. All right. So as I mentioned, scoring cards, just for our listeners, I'll read through it briefly. Essentially, it's out of 10 points, potentially 10.5 for one person. It breaks down into really 3 big categories: construction, finishing, weathering, and difficulty. So construction, you have basic hull and body work is 2 points, basic running gear and drivetrain 2 points, hull, chassis, and turret detailing 1 point. So that'll total up to 5 points. So about half your points are construction. Finish and weathering is 4 points, and that's finish and markings 1.5, weathering 1.5, and then finish continuity, which we'll get back to, as 1 point, totaling 4. And then ultimately the other point is degree of difficulty, and that's rather ambiguous, but I think that's another one where it's flexible and really dependent on your table captain. What's interesting about AMPS is they give a research bonus. This is a 0.5 to your overall score. So you can have a total of 30 points. They'll drop the lowest score from the 4 teams, and then you could potentially have a 30.5 based on that research. The research, again, with some of this, and I think it all comes down to education for the table captains and the team members. The research bonus, I've seen it given out pretty liberally, where you show some pictures of a vehicle. It could be the same, usually, again, type of vehicle. And I'll use an example where Doc did not get research points on his Elephant, but he gave a lot of research in terms of what unit, not the exact vehicle, but the unit, how it was, reference photos, all these things. I've seen some groups award that, and then other groups award a research bonus only to models that model a specific vehicle. So there's a little bit of ambiguity there, but I do think it's a little nice. And I think that's the preservation part of the AMPS acronym, where you look at how do they preserve history, and they help tell it in scale modeling. And that's one of the things. I don't know if anybody else has a comment on that.
I mean, I like it because I like bonus points. I need my half point, right? It's one of those things. I also wish it was easier to see on the tables, because I love that part of AMPS and modeling, right? Like, I'm a big history nerd, right? I got a degree in history. I love diving down the rabbit hole that you didn't know was interesting about the variant of the Elephant that was north of Anzio and whatever. And I love talking to you guys about that kind of thing when we're looking at new kits or a build. And some people make like a really nice brag book, but most of the models there have that research behind them, and it can be hard to access that. Like, some people's, it was tucked under the model and you could kind of pull it out and look. But I can imagine a digital future where, people have typed this info in, right? Because they have a digital registration thing, and you could just walk up with your phone and QR code the model and have everything visible for you, the reference pictures, the stuff. I mean, that's, aspirational, but I'm a big fan of the research half point. I think it's fun and it fits their mission.
Yeah, agree. One of the other unique things I'll talk about as we're getting into the entry at the show and giving people a recap of the AMPS format, they also go by, which is unique. Some shows internationally do it, but AMPS really takes it to another level, I think, in terms of their tiers of entrance. So, obviously they start off as juniors, and that's determined by age. But outside of that, as they look at encouraging the entry of models, there's the basic, intermediate, advanced, and then ultimately master. I think what's important, and to show the health of an organization, I'll just feel free to chime in as we look at these entries. The most of them, if you look at the show, most of the people are in the advanced category, and I think a good sign of how healthy an organization is how many people are entering in basic and intermediate, because those folks are coming to the show for the first time. And, for those that are interested, where do you fit, in the AMP system, if you're curious? Basic modelers, to be honest, those are your new entrants into the hobby. I think those are the folks that maybe got a kit from grandma, or they're just starting off, and they're learning a lot of techniques, and they're just getting into the hobby. Your intermediate modeler, just, someone that's been doing it casually, I think is the best word for it. And then advanced is someone that is, taking it to the next level, consistently winning at local shows, placing at IPMS nationals, and or been published. So that's kind of the tiering there. And maybe I'll stop for a moment if anybody has comments on that as well. Everybody in our group, we told them to enter advanced because they're not cherry picking an intermediate.
I think part of the breakdown between the different tiers, I guess, is the leniency on judging, right? Is that kind of how that works? So it's like, gold has a score between, and I don't know this to be fact, but, I'd assume like, 25 to 30 for basic, and then, 20 to 25 for silver or whatever. And then, advanced, they really tighten it up where it's 28 to 30 score gets you gold, 26 to 28 gets you silver, 24 to 26 gets you bronze or whatever. But I think that's how that works, right?
Yeah, you're close. So an intermediate gold is 30 to 27. The silver is 23 to 26 and a half, and a bronze is 19 to 22 and a half. Or advanced, like you said, is 28 to 30 is a gold, 25 to 27 and a half is a silver, and 22 to 24 and a half is a bronze. So anything, if you score less than a 22 in an advanced, you don't get a medal. And then for basic, it's even more. You have a 4-point swing for a gold in basic, and then they pretty much follow that 4-point swing all the way down. So in basic, if you can score up to a 16 and get a medal.
Yeah, I mean, I like the system. I thought it was, compared to other competitions I've been to and such, I think it's fair. I think it's fun for new people, right? Like, so you can come and compete and all. There's, the concern of sandbagging, right? Oh, I'm a world master modeler, but I've never been to AMPS. I'm an intermediate. Well, yeah, you're probably getting a bunch of golds, but you can only do that once ever, and then you're bumped to advanced, because once you gold in one category, you have to move up. So that's a very low risk to me. Like, someone's going to do it, and that's okay. And it didn't keep the other competitors from getting a gold, because you're not really competing against them. So yeah, some master modeler from Finland shows up and takes a bunch of golds in intermediate. What's the worst case? The other guys in intermediate still get judged appropriately, and they're not competing for the big overall prizes, best in World War II or whatever, which are only for advanced modelers. So I really like the system. The fact that you get to self-select is kind of, weird if you haven't done it before and you don't have a baseline, but you can ask your friends, you can ask people in line. I have no issue with it. I think it's pretty great.
You can also get on AMPS's website, because they do a pretty good job of photographing every entry. And if you go to like the previous year's page on their website, which admittedly their website is a little clunky, could be streamlined a little bit, but if you find your way there, you can. And they don't I'm pretty sure they don't explicitly state that you can do that, but if you click on because they list all the entries broken down in basic, intermediate, advanced per category, and then what the modeler's name, the subject, and what they got. If you click that, it'll give you a pop-up of a picture of that entry. They're not the best pictures in the world. They're not going to be what I would produce as, using my photo setup at home, but they're not bad. And it'll kind of give you a good idea. You can look at what earned gold and silver in whatever category that you wanted to enter. So it can kind of give you a good baseline of what maybe you should enter if you go to the show, if you don't know. But yeah, I do like that. That's pretty cool.
I think another caveat to bring up, like Doc was saying about what's the worst that could happen, if you're, the professional modeler from Finland that shows up and enters intermediate, like obviously he's not going to be like an IPMS show where, okay, well, we know who's getting gold in all these, so I don't have a shot. Like, obviously that's not the case. However, if you do enter intermediate or anything like that, you may leave with a bunch of hardware as far as medals go. I mean, obviously you only get one physical medal per category, and it's going to be your highest medal in that category. So, you're not going to be Georgy Zhukov, from Death of Stalin with medals down to his knee, leaving a show. But that being said, if you do enter intermediate, and that you're a great modeler, like, that's fine. Just know that, you're not going to get eligible for a best of show or a best of category unless you're advanced. Which, obviously, if that's your thing and that's what you're searching for, enter in advanced, because, you might end up entering intermediate your first time there and have a bunch of best ofs in your stuff from AMPS and from IPMS and everything, and then not win a best of, even though you may have deserved it.
I think you're still eligible for the special awards, but for the straight up best of categories, of which I think they have 8, And it's like best American, best Commonwealth, best Soviet/Russian, best vignette, best diorama, best figure. Oh, best small army. Those you're not eligible for. But then there's a ton of like what they call special awards. They announce at the same time, like best U.S. Marine Corps subject, best Israeli Sherman subject or Israeli subject. That's the Tom Gammon Award. I think they do a couple other best ofs, or not best ofs, but just special awards. Like it do best Braille scale award for the best 70-second scale, because we didn't really touch on that, but you are not broken out by scale in the categories. World War II Allied is World War II Allied 70-second scale all the way up to 16th, whatever. There is no, Braille scale, 48 scale, and 35th scale and above category. It's all the same, which is cool.
Yeah, it's all based on subject matter.
Ridiculous. Like my little 70-second scale T-34, that's a rusty relic on a beach in 2010, got entered in modern armor because that's what it was. It was a modern vehicle put in beach defense. So it's this tiny little 172nd T-34 next to every 35th scale modern vehicle that's 5 times its size on the table, which was cute.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. You're where they break out the eras, because they do pre-World War II, World War II, kind of like Cold War era, and then modern era. That's all defined by the markings. So a T-72 could be Cold War or it could be modern. Depends on what your markings are. Just like Doc was saying, your T-34 could be World War II or early modern, or even modern, because there's still some in service, I'm sure, somewhere. So it's all based on your markings. And that's up for, they give the modeler the benefit of the doubt on that.
Yeah, that was the one conversation I had with the Ramrod, was like which category to enter this T-34 in, because it was put on the beach in like 1980, but I was doing it fully rusted out like it was a couple of years ago. And he kind of was, in the end, thought it was funny, and then was kind of like, yeah, either one you want to do, I can understand your argument. I'll support you either way, which was cool, right? Like, not to have someone being super uptight about it and kind of understanding there's a little ambiguity and just letting me pick which category I thought it fit.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing too. You just mentioned there, Doc, is it's okay to be ambiguous. And to be honest, the AMPS folks, a major benefit, I think, of this show, and it's just a great vibes. And there is no uptightness or super strictness around where things are going. I mean, it's like, okay, we're just a bunch of dudes entering models and hanging out. I mean, I didn't feel like there was pressure or, again, just the overall vibe was like, it was a very much kind of a Big Lebowski approach to a scale model show. There wasn't a lot of structure or rigor behind, being super tight. Oh, your markings are actually 1947, so they're not going to fit into this category. It's like, no, whatever the modeler wants, just put it in that category. It's cool, because in the essence of all of it, it doesn't matter unless there's like the determination for a special award, because they're all being judged independently. It doesn't matter. Honestly, the places on the table are just there for, consistency and putting like things together. But otherwise, it's cool, dude. Just do what you want. So that's the kind of vibe it is at AMPS.
Well, that's just like your opinion or something, man.
That diorama really brought the room together.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I got a couple questions. I mean, obviously, I think the main reason we all go to shows is the hang, and I mean, that's the coolest thing. So aside from that, what would you guys say was the best thing about the AMPS Nationals, and then maybe an opportunity where maybe things could be a little bit better? Doc, I want to start with you, but what was your favorite thing about the AMPS National show?
Favorite besides hanging out with people, which is the easy answer. So I haven't done AMPS before, so I was new to the judging and the feedback, which I thought I would enjoy, and I did. So that's a big one for me compared to all the IPMS shows I've been to. I will say I was also pleasantly surprised by the vendors at this show. Like, it's not as big as IPMS and AMPS, but there were some really good vendors. There was like crazy great selection and some deals, some tools, some new kits. So I throw those two out there as the judging kind of feedback experience and the vendors, which isn't usually why I go to shows.
What about an opportunity maybe for improvement that you didn't love?
So speaking of judging and feedback, now I think there's some inconsistency in judging we can talk about later, but that's, I think, always going to be the case. I'd say the other thing that we brought up was that you can't see the models till they're judged out on the table. And it would be really cool, like JB was saying, if you could line them up in the back or put them in a staging room where you could at least walk by and view them to kill some time. That would be really, I had very minimal complaints about this show. There weren't a lot of opportunities compared to other shows I've been to, honestly. It might have been the best show I've been to as far as what the show could do, what they could control, the venue they selected, all of those kind of things.
That's cool. TJ, what about you? What's your input?
I mean, there's nothing really that I feel like they could really improve show-wise, structure-wise a little bit. One of the suggestions that we had at our AMPS meeting yesterday is to break out hard sci-fi and fictional vehicles into two separate categories that are like realistic fictional vehicles or experimental vehicles. So per the AMPS rules, those go in with like hard sci-fi. So you can have like a Machine and Krieger, Walker in with technically like an Abrams X, because that's an experimental vehicle, or, our buddy Frank's ISU 152 turret thing. It's not real. I don't really think that belongs in the same category as a hover tank.
Yeah.
Because it's based on a real thing and it's a, fictional proposed vehicle, or like a lot of the stuff that Brian Krieger builds would all go in the sci-fi category, even though there's plans for it. That's how he based that off building it. I would like to see them break those two apart. But that's fine. Like, I keep fictional vehicles and proposed vehicles out of like the actual stuff, but like give them another category that's a little bit less of an afterthought, which is the way sci-fi is kind of treated at AMPS.
Yeah, this kind of like
not entirely, like, because there was a load of stuff in the sci-fi, fictional vehicle. That was a pretty full category. I'm not one to like, we need to make a million categories for everything, but those under that umbrella of fictional vehicles, there should be two separate categories to let the guys that like Brian and Frank and guys that do these paper panzers or experimental what ifs kind of like get a little more attention and not hide them in the back where they keep all the sci-fi stuff like far away from everything else. That's my only negative complaint, but positive, like AMPS does a good job. They have it figured out. Yeah. I love going to the AMPS Nats. They're fun.
Yeah, I think it's like at a lot of shows, they'll group real space subjects with science fiction and same thing. So yeah, I definitely see that. What about iBones models? Ian, what was your favorite thing aside from the hang and maybe an area that you think they might want to look at for improvement?
So this was my first ever AMPS event that I attended in person. I guess I'll caveat because I had TJ take my T37 for me last year, the one that I dumped beer all over at JB's kitchen table. But, I don't have enough data points, I would say, to say, hey, you guys really need to improve this or anything like that. Like, I've been to a ton of IPMS shows, and obviously we all know kind of what we would suggest for those. At the risk of sounding like I'm just copying everybody else's homework, I would say totally agree with what's been said about, having the prejudged vehicles maybe in a public location that can be seen. I mean, I'm trying to think of like any sort of, resistance you would get to that. And maybe like, I don't see anybody like it's not like some random person could just set their model there in that and have it not be right. Because when you get there, you're setting your models on this tray and then an AMPS guy is taking it. And that's the last you touch your model until you're putting it back in the box. So like, that's not really an issue. And there's really there's really no reason to not have it displayed. I mean, at the end of the event, when they're assessing all the best ofs, I mean, there's a guy walking around with like a book cart from a library, grabbing them off the tables while everybody's milling around. So it's not like if they're doing that, it's not like, that's going to having the prejudged models that the general public is going to get in the way or whatever. You know what I mean? And like kind of going along with that as well, the sci-fi thing, like obviously being that I'm involved in my local IPMS chapter, and there's always people suggesting, hey, you guys need this very, very narrow, specific category for my very, very narrow and specific model. Like, I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer, like TJ said, like having a Machine and Krieger and having an Abrams X next to each other doesn't really make sense. So like having that one category, just always thinking of like what resistance you would get to suggestion like that. I don't think that's going to open the floodgates to other people being like, well, we just need an Axis one. We just need an Allies one. Like everything else about it works. I think that's just kind of the part that makes you kind of go, okay, I guess that makes sense. But other than that, like I said, I haven't been to enough of these or been involved in AMPS long enough to start throwing out, you guys need to change this kind of thing. But, maybe that'll change here in the future. I'm planning on going to next year's if I can, and maybe I'll have some better feedback next year. But I was like my buddy Adam Jackson said, I was just stars in my eyes seeing everything there because it was my first time ever being there and just absorbing everything that I could. So
yeah, that's cool. Oh, by the way, banquet beer, weathering, patent pending, right?
Yep, I'll be taking. People can pay to use that if they want.
JB, what about you? What's your feedback?
I think it was all overall great show. As many have mentioned on here, I think all of us agree that the AMPS way of doing business is a winning combination. I want to stress, as we talk about opportunities, please take them as certainly that. This is not meant to be a gripe session, but if we could tweak things, where would we tweak them? So I'll just start off. Overall impression, absolutely fantastic. Outside of the hang, I thought the venue was great. As I think back to the early 2000s and Havre de Grace and that cramped community center without air conditioning and people on top of each other. It's a great evolution of how this show has grown to where it is today, and really exemplifies an organization that has a solid foundation. The show itself, like I said, I think the venue was the biggest thing I enjoyed. It had space, it had light. It had plenty of places to just go sit down and socialize. It just had a good vibe to it. And I applaud the AMPS folks for, getting that venue. And I hope it's on a rotation, because I will go to that every time, twice on Sunday for that show. So big kudos to that venue and the team. As we look at the execution of the event, got to recognize the team that did it. And from my understanding, it was AMPS Chicagoland was the main host, but the national organization and the officers within it certainly stepped up, and all the folks that are part of that organization as well. Scott, one of our listeners, I think he pulled working 6-hour days each day, ramrod. So really big shout out to all the folks that stepped up and helped, either judging or supporting the show. So that's what I like the most, the venue and the people in terms of executing it. Where the area of opportunity, I do think it's showing the models before they're judged. As we've all talked about, tables are bare Friday morning, and I would just love the opportunity to see what's going to be judged, or at least what's at the show prior to it getting on the table. I think that's the biggest thing as we look for opportunities. And again, completely understand it's dependent on location and logistics. So we all understand that. We're just noting that this is what I'd love to see more. But overall, 10 out of 10 as we think about what has AMPS looked like over the last 20 years. This is certainly a high point for them.
That's cool. It's good to have, different shows with different experiences. I think that's really valuable and everything. But, you guys talked about the Verbo and everything. And I think you guys went to some other Verbos. Seems like this was a lot more compared to other AMPS from the outside that I've seen in the past. It seems like this was really kind of a really social show.
This show it was about the hangs. That's what it was. It was friggin' awesome. Just full stop. We had our own little party house. That was legit. That place is obviously, that's what that was built for, right? It's all beds and like one couch a half a mile from Notre Dame's campus. Like the owners of that house are definitely like, this is where you and all your boys show up and drink before you go watch Notre Dame football, right? Like that's what it was. And that's what we did.
They knew what they were doing.
And they were cool. There was like, what was the only rule of the house? Be respectful to the neighbors.
Yeah, be respectful to your neighbors. There was no party rules there. It was just, please be kind to people.
Yeah, so it was awesome. And you say that, Scott, you bring a good point, because at our AMPS meeting yesterday for our local chapter, afterwards when we do a happy hour after our meeting, and me and Jeff Feller and a couple other guys were all hanging out, and Jeff was sitting next to me at the brewery that we go to, and he mentioned that. He's like, that was like, it's like out of all that, he's like, I've been going to AMP shows since the 90s, or like, I guess the late 90s. Like Jeff's been around for a while, and he was like, I think out of this show, more than any, it's like the most social show that I've ever been to. It's like I did more hanging out and like carrying on, having a good time at this show than any other show before. He's like, and I did that a little bit last year, but he's like, this year definitely was like, yeah, this is why we come here.
anecdotally speaking, be respectful to your neighbors. So everybody, the social hang, everybody that, from online's getting these Airbnbs and stuff. And we had the Modeling Insanity guys had theirs about a block and a half from ours. So of course, at like 9:30 after we're several adult beverages in, we're like, let's walk over there and say hi. So, 11 or 12 of us go walking over there, and we get there, and, there's a giant picture with probably 40 of us in the picture, from the backyard. And, you think of what your average demographic of a model show looks like when you go to a show or whatever, you think, how wild and crazy can these guys possibly be? But man, I'm 32 going on 33 years old, and I haven't been kicked out of a house party because the cops are coming in a minute. And definitely we may have accidentally done that at the Modeling Insanity guys. We were in the backyard. Now that was crazy. We were just a bunch of loud, jovial guys, and the next thing hey, the Airbnb guy says the cops are coming. So of course we all, okay, time to go, see ya. But it was definitely very, very social.
It was pretty funny. We're walking back down to our house, and Aaron's like, we were all holding drinks, and Aaron's like, it's been a long time since I've had to walk down the street from one house to another holding a beer.
Yeah, structurally speaking, I think this is why like a college town or South Bend specifically works so well, right? Because they had this great convention center thing that was big and well lit and a big hotel next to it. But then within walking distance, we were like a 20-minute walk away across the river. There's a big walkable neighborhood with a bunch of cheap Airbnbs because it's not football season, right? It's off season for them. And college campus is right over there. I mean, it's a pretty neat place. It's not New York City, but you can't do this in New York City, right? Like it's actually a really great way to have an affordable but social convention where you have a hotel, a bunch of walkable places to stay, places to eat. It's a good choice.
Yeah, especially places to eat. I got to give a shout out. Off-season football in Notre Dame, they'll take you anywhere with parties of 15 or more, for crying out loud. When we were walking around, we walked into that Mexican joint in Thursday evening, and they sat us with no problem. And that was an amazing meal. Service was great and absolutely fantastic. And, they had strawberry slushy margaritas for Aaron. So that was great. Really cute to see him having a drink. But it was exactly that. It's a good little town. And again, you think a tier 1 is New York City, DC, Chicago. This is a good tier B city, tier 2 city. Would love to see the show go back there. And again, other conventions as well, certainly take advantage of it. And I got to shout out Peg's Chicken and Waffles for breakfast. That place was bomb.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's the only time we had to wait was the Saturday morning, which it's Saturday morning and at breakfast time. And there's not very many places where you're not going to wait. I wish we didn't wait as long because I really needed that food in my system because I was running a little dry.
TJ and I looking at each other with bloodshot eyes, being like, not saying anything, but we knew we both were pretty crispy the night before.
TJ looked bad. You looked undead, my friend.
Yeah, 1,000-yard stare, man.
Yeah. So for anyone that doesn't already know, we rolled pretty hard Friday night. I party a little harder than I'm used to, and I paid for it in the morning. It was not a pleasant sight. But I went for like a 2-mile walk, which was nice. Help, get some fresh air. Doc wanted to go for a run. I'm like, I can't run right now. I can walk. So I think he had left, and I'm like, I got to get outside and need fresh air. So I just kind of walked. Like I did a big circle. I walked pretty much to the venue and then walked back. And then I'm like, I need some damn food in my stomach right now. So that's when we went to Peg's, and I was disappointed because I really wanted chicken and waffles because chicken and waffles is like legit my favorite meal. But I was like, I don't know if I feel like I'm okay, but I don't know how my stomach is going to react to fried chicken right now. So like, I'm just going to get biscuits and gravy, which was delicious. Their sausage gravy was awesome because it was spicy, which is the way I like it. And their bacon was really good too. Yeah.
I don't
a cup of coffee helps.
No one would join me on my morning jog to see campus that morning.
I had every intention to do so until
I gotta say Notre Dame's campus is pretty beautiful. I always like checking out college campuses. My wife works in higher ed, and so she's always checking them out when we travel. And Notre Dame obviously being famous. I'm a huge football fan, right? That was my religion growing up, was college football. So, but yeah, I went on a jog that morning. First mile, a little slow. Got on campus, got inspired, saw Touchdown Jesus, saw, statue of the Gipper and stuff. And then I'm jogging through campus and I suddenly realize I'm on the course of a charity 5 and 10K they're running on campus, and there are a ton of people with numbers, but I'm a good 20, 30 minutes in front of them because I'm just on my own. And now people are clapping for me, and like they're like sorority girls at tables handing me up like Gatorade. And I'm like, I need to get off this course, but I'm behind a lake. There's nowhere else to run. I got to get back to the Airbnb. So thankfully I didn't run through the finishing line. I took a right turn, but I almost banded it and won the charity 5K.
That's awesome. And for our listeners who can't see, we had Jackson Stanton pop into our recording because we shared the Zoom link in a group chat, and he probably suspected we were just talking about modeling, but no, we are recording. We are live. So Jackson, welcome to the episode, but he's not here anymore, so he'll live in posterity.
Well, one other question I had for you guys is, a lot of great pictures over the week, that I was watching, kind of nursing a little bit of a FOMO grump. I had to stay back in Salt Lake City because of the day job, but wanted to get maybe some thoughts on 2 or 3 things on the tables that you guys saw that were made an impression. So JB, let's start with you this time. What were some of the entries that you saw that really kind of inspired you?
Ooh, great question. There was a bunch. I'll just start off with a few, some of which I've seen already. So I'll go with those. When I think of, master level modeling, got to give a shout out to BJ DeBecker's Gamma, his scratch printed, friggin' awesome. I saw that before at the IPMS Nationals, had the privilege to judge it there. An amazing piece, and he was rewarded appropriately at the end. I think, he took Best World War I and maybe another special. Maybe it was Popular Choice, I think.
Yeah, it was People's Choice.
Yeah, People's Choice. An amazing model. Another model that I enjoyed was Jesse Naughton's Blown Up 152. I thought that is a fantastic vignette. He took Best Vignette with it, I believe. Again, another stellar modeler from a stellar model from a stellar modeler. And in terms of new work, I really enjoyed Pat Brown's big IDF diorama. I thought it was sweet. Massive, really crisp, really well done, and just professional. It's one of those things you could see in a museum. And then another piece I'll say, and then I'll pause and let other people go. There was a VK. Oh gosh, I don't know the designator, but it was painted in Panzer blue from a listener named Bill, and it was. I loved it. I thought it was super cool. He shared it in the group. I got to talk to him. It was really neat to see it on the table, and I'll be honest, it was one of my favorite pieces there because it jumped out. So major shout out to him in the Panzer Blue.
Doc, what inspired you on the tables?
I'm just glad you called out the Panzer Blue because that thing, you ran to it like a beacon when it showed up on the table. If I had to pick one, probably, I hadn't met Jesse Naughton before, but I knew him online from Facebook groups at probably SMCG years ago. And I've chatted with him a few times. He's always given me good feedback on my work. So it was cool to meet him and then see his work in person because things do look different in person from photos. So I enjoyed seeing his work a lot. I walked around with him for, 10 or 15 minutes and had him show me his pieces, which then won a bunch of stuff the next day, which is always kind of fun when you're like, yeah, I got that VIP tour and now he's winning a bunch of awards. But it's probably, I'd loop his stuff together is what I was excited to see. That was great.
Ian, what about you?
So anybody that has interacted with me at all or sees any of my builds know I'm really into Eastern Bloc stuff, just the lines of it, how dirty they get and everything. But I finally got to see Greg Hanchuk's work in person. And he had a Ukrainian BRDM from the Battle of Ilovaisk in, I think it was like 2014 or 2015, which was like, way early on. And I got to actually sit there and talk to him about it. And like, we both were kind of like, when you talk to somebody that you're like, I'm going to drop a couple of references and see if they pick it up. And like, he and I were like 2 peas in a pod talking about like, oh yeah, I remember this one because this happened and this happened. And, his work was great. He had that on the table. Obviously, we'd mentioned Pat Brown's IDF thing. He's got one of the things that we all kind of realize when you stand there and look at it, like obviously he used a bunch of, for those of you who haven't seen it, I guess it's the bridge crossing from the Sinai into Egypt, I believe was what it was. And he basically scratch built the pontoon bridge and had a Israeli M60 going across it. But like, if you got, it has a bunch of resin water on it, like a bunch of resin water. Like this is probably 3 feet by 2 feet. Like it's a big diorama. It might not be that big, but the lights are hitting the water and it's got the, the glossy surface, but you actually walk up to it and you look in it. He put an M113 on its side down in the river under the water, like it basically, had come off the pontoon bridge or whatever, which is an amazing detail. I thought, that was, I was like, this is definitely a contender for best of show. There's no way it's not. But, those, like, it was just, I'm a huge junkie for, vignettes and dioramas and things telling stories. And that was up. Those two were up there for me.
Nice. Those were good pieces. I really like Pat's work, like you said, from the photos. TJ, what about you? What caught your eye?
There was a couple things. The first one, and it's a fairly, not obscure, but not something that really is like jumps out at you as like a amazing thing. But it's a Morris quad, which is it's a tractor that the British use both in the desert and in Europe, and it's just a funky looking thing. Like it's all angular. I mean, it looks like a stealth fighter. It's not. It has it was not armored. It looks armored, but it's not. But someone did one in OD in black camo, and it just expertly weathered. It was really, really, really good. Like really good. And it's a cool subject because I don't know. I got a thing for soft skins when they're done really, really well, because you don't see as much of them as you do like big old tanks and stuff. But that was amazing. And then there was a Sherman, and I didn't get the modeler's name. It was just really good. And he had up on a black base. It was like kind of elevated, just a really solid build. It was very well done. Yeah. I wanted to talk to the guy that I saw him. I was talking with John Hale, and the guy walked over, and I think John knew him because like, oh, you did this. And I didn't really get a chance to talk to him, but yeah, it was just a good solid. I love a good solid Sherman.
Yeah, there seemed like there was a lot of really good inspirational pieces to choose from.
No, I echo what's all been said. I think as you looked across the table there was a lot of great work, and some of those standout pieces. I gotta give a shout out to the quad again, as TJ mentioned. That was one of my favorite pieces there. I thought for an old Tamiya kit and the color, it just really well executed. The airborne bike on the back, just a fantastic piece, and glad to see. I believe it won gold, but. Overall, as we've mentioned, I think the show has been a lot of fun. For this segment, we can wrap up in a few, but I also want to highlight, the people outside of, the Plastic Posse. One of the things about this event, and I'd encourage us to talk about it. Certainly TJ became really close to one of them, but the Modeling Insanity guys, major shout out to them. They were all super nice. I think from top to bottom, Frank, Justin, Rob Riv, and Steve Tooch. I mean, these are gentlemen, some of which I'd met before, some of which I'd never met before. And it kind of goes back to our meeting with the geeks and the Mojo at the IPMS Vegas Nationals, where, you're like-minded individuals with a common shared passion. And it clearly shows in terms of your personalities and getting to know each other. We quickly became friends. I think Rob Riv essentially was our sidekick the whole time. TJ certainly got enough of Rob to last a year, but no, all jokes aside, these are fantastic people. The Mojo folks were there too. Stephen Lee showed up. There was also El Presidente from the Geek. So overall, individuals that I've had the pleasure of meeting before in person, some of which and some of them new, just great friends. And I'll also note the show itself. It was a reunion for me. I hadn't been to an AMPS since 2019 in Buffalo, and a lot of the folks there I hadn't seen since then. And even before that, Marty and Mary, specifically from Chicago, they are prominent vendors, in the Region 4 area back in the early 2000s. And then they've slowed down in terms of show engagement. But it was really wonderful to see Mary there and everyone. And gosh, all the Ohio folks that made the journey over, my buddies up in Michigan. So just what I'm trying to say is the people there made it amazing, and the people that we hadn't met before. But maybe I'll kick it around the room to my fellow people online right here and just ask, who you met and what was great about it. If you want to give somebody a shout out, I'll start with you, TJ. I think I might know who you're going to shout out.
Who do you think I'm going to shout out?
Rob Riv, who showed you extra attention.
Yeah. Couldn't keep his hands off me.
Oh, my gosh.
I was getting really handsy.
Your arms are so big.
He's like, oh, TJ, your arms are so big. I'm like, oh, God. What's your deal? Nah, it was cool. I always love hanging out with Riv. Riv's a good dude. My biggest one, the one I was really excited to do, is I got to meet John Hale. John is an awesome dude, and he's an amazing modeler. He's like the Sherman guy. And yeah, he's just really cool, really laid back. We did lunch one day over at a little pub. It was actually pretty good. I liked it. Yeah, then, getting to see, Kenneth Childers, Hobbs, of course, was there, so that's always fun. BJ was there, which was great. And then yeah, meeting the all of the Model Insanity guys was cool. I'd met obviously Riv and Justin before, and yeah, that was awesome. And then of course El Presidente was there from the Geeks. He drove in, and Stephen Lee was there. But yeah, it was cool. And of course, our man Steve Munsell, got to see him for a little bit. Like he said, it's like, man, we need to like actually hang out sometime, because I feel like, you know, you go to a show, you don't really get a chance, because he's working, you don't really get a chance to spend much time with people.
Ian, what about yourself?
So obviously, you know, piggybacking off of TJ, I got to seeing Steve Munsell's always a treat. He mailed out to me, since I was closest and driving up there, he mailed out to me some stuff so he didn't have to fly with it. And the dude included like a little model kit for my boy, like one of those little dinosaurs that you put the pieces on, and a couple of kids' books. So, I mean, the dude's an amazing guy. But, you know, I got to meet Jeff Feller, which was cool. He's a really cool dude. You know, reconnecting with all of you boys, obviously. Seeing Adam Jackson a second time, you know, I talked a lot to him. That was great. You know, and like I said, I got to meet Greg Hanchuk. So he's like one of my favorite modelers, you know, so that was cool talking to him for a minute. You know, definitely these events like this are really, really cool, because, you know, you start actually talking to people more than just like, you know, on Facebook Messenger, you know, and you're like, oh, that's so-and-so. Or like, you know, if you're like me and don't have your actual face as your profile picture most of the time, you start, you know, oh, that's who this guy is. That's who that guy is, you know. But it was definitely, I mean, it was, if we did what we did without there being a model show, it would have been equally as fun, I think. You know, even if we just brought a bunch of models out and then hung out, I think, you know, that would have been worth it in and of itself. It's just, I got to hang out with my friends, and there's also a model show. So
Definitely. Doc, how about yourself?
Ditto and ditto. I had fun having lunch with Hale, with TJ, and I think Grizz was with us. And now he's already, you know, responded to some posts on my Facebook where I've shown Sherman kits. You know, it's like baiting someone out of the woods. I got a Schlitz beer from Hobbs, which is, you know, winning, clearly, for me. And then, like, our housemates, like Mark, I didn't know Mark well, and super cool guy. And his little 40th scale Sherman was great, right? And so that was fun. Otherwise, yeah, the laundry list you guys just listed, plus more. Man, if I had 1/10 of the joy that Adam Jackson has just walking around in life, I'd be set, right? Like, he was a fun guy to meet. But yeah, it was good. There are too many people. I'm bad with names, so I'm going to leave people off. It's like an Emmy Award speech or an Oscar speech. If I've left your name off, forgive me.
Oh, 100%. I'm the same way. You know, we met a lot of listeners too. Bill, Kurt, Scott. The list goes on and on and on. All of them are super great. And I think that's the one regret of the show is the hang time. You mentioned Steve Munsell. I had like maybe 2 light conversations with him. And at the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had more time. And same with Brandon Jacob as well. I had the opportunity to sit with him and a few of the other Texas folks at dinner. Yeah, one of the other things definitely got to call out is Matt Schaefer. He put together a 65-person dinner at the end of the day on Friday that kind of kicked off the evening festivities at a local brewery. I thought that event was fantastic. It was $40, and we show up and like, okay, $40 for this food is good. And they're like, yeah, you can just keep drinking till 9 p.m. For free. And it's like, oh, all right, well, $40 is now an amazing deal. But that was a great time. I think the room was electric in there. I will say there was probably like 80 people. So, you know, if the folks that didn't pay, shame on you. I'm going to call you out here on the podcast. It was not free. But, you know, major shout out to Matt for organizing that. It is not easy wrangling that many folks in that environment. We had everybody from every podcast that was there. It was just, again, a really great hang. I think what helped there is, you know, people had to sit with people they'd never met because the seats, you know, people were showing up late and you had to spread out, which was great. You got to know people. I spent, you know, the first session with the folks, I actually ate with the folks from Texas, Stan, Rob, Brandon, major shout out to them. Bob Bethay was there as well. I don't know if he went to the dinner, but the Texas folks, it was good to see them, great to talk to them. And then I made my way over to the Insanity table for the rest of the evening. And one of the, you know, also we got to call out Preston Stinger as well. Fantastic younger modeler. Great to see him in person there. And it's about time he's in the advanced category. So his work is absolutely fantastic. But I thought that dinner was great. I don't know if there's any impressions as well.
Yeah, I had a great time. And like you said, there's definitely more people than probably should have been there. So I will also use this time to cast shame on you if you showed up and you didn't pay Matt money. That's not cool. So
The economics of it are nonsensical. I don't understand how it was so cheap yet tasty, but
yeah.
I'll take it. I mean, that's twice he's hosted and like organized events, right? And they both been great.
Yeah. Oh, well, he also did it. So he did it at AMPS. Well, he took a bunch of us out. Our contingent at AMPS last year was much smaller, but he made it a point to take me and Jackson and I can't remember who else. He took a couple of us out to dinner, which was really nice. And he would not let me give him money for dinner. So Matt's a good dude. He's one of the best. So
it was amazing, man. You go to this brewery, there's amazing food, and it's basically all intents and purposes an open bar, which I was shocked. Like we all were kind of thinking, oh, it's going to be like a drink ticket that you get. But I'm sitting next to Doc and, we're sitting here like, oh, this is good. Let's try this. Oh, this is good. And 4 beers later, I'm like sitting there. I wonder how this stout is. And the waitress comes up and says, did anybody order this? I said, but I've been thinking about that. So she just handed it to me and walked off. Doc was like, yeah, of course.
I mean, the problem was they had to keep coming back to the table to get his empties, to wash them, to have clean glassware to bring him more beers. Like we got in this cycle, which shows you how many people were at the venue.
Yeah, it was a good time. And one more person I'll name we haven't mentioned yet, Bruce Worrell, bringing the international contingent to our group. So it was certainly good to see him. And he took his lovely wife as well, which was cool. But overall, a great show, great fun. Why are we talking about all this? To encourage more people to go. If you're interested in the slightest, you should definitely make the journey to AMPS next year, which will be at Camp Hill, Pennsylvania on May the 15th to Saturday, May the 17th. So it'll be at the Paris Hotel in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. I fully intend on going. I think everybody in our house, everybody online here, certainly I think Ian, Doc, and TJ, you all are in again, right?
Oh, yeah. It's less than 2 hours from my house.
Saturday the 17th, my birthday, so I get to pull a JB next year.
Ooh. And Doc, you're in? You get to drive down or fly?
I'm in. Yeah, that's questionable. I don't know. It's getting close to driving range, right? For me, yeah. I'm not a big driver. I'm not like TJ, who's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to put on punk, metal, something, I don't know, hardcore, and just drive for 9 hours straight. I'm not into that.
And Scott's going to go. He'll fly.
Yeah, I'm not quite in driving range, but quit being a wuss, Doc. Come on. 9 hours is barely getting the car warmed up.
Hell, who lives out west or has lived out west versus living on the East Coast.
I just don't mind. I just really don't mind it. I'm good at driving. If that could be a thing. I mean, I drove 21 hours coming home from Texas last year straight by myself with 3 knuckleheads in the car. So it's not even like, I could have switched out, but I was like, no, I'm good. I'd rather just do it myself.
Get it out. So I think this has been a great discussion. As we noted many times, please, folks, if you're interested at all, and I'll also be honest, the folks that came that aren't terribly interested in armor, I think they had a good time too. So it might be an armor centric show, but if you're on the East Coast within driving distance, couple hours, definitely check out the AMPS event next year in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. So as we wrap this, one more thing we'll end on is, we've mentioned the judging a lot. One of the things that we did, which was a lot of fun and will turn into a yearly tradition now, is reading the judging sheets post show at the kitchen table with a pizza, with a beer, and with a bunch of friends. And it was a blast. I think one of the things we learned is judging is judging, no matter where you go. But it was a lot of fun. I'll go around the room, but I'll set the stage. In terms of our house, we had 10 people staying there, and our house took home 41 medals, which is pretty crazy. 26 were gold. So it was a lot of fun to hang out with a lot of good modelers, and that's just a sliver of what was at the show. But as we mentioned, the fun part was sitting around the table, and maybe we go around the room and just mention one of the unique things the judges mentioned. I guess for mine, I'll call out, inconsistent mud on vehicle. The mud changes from wheel to wheel, not consistent. And I got dinged for that. I thought that was pretty funny. Ian, over to you.
So obviously, I will preface this and say this isn't an attack on the judges or anything like that. Obviously we're all good sports, and we just, there was some pretty amusing things on there because, you gotta love these judges. It's all a volunteer basis. They are looking at model after model after model brought to them, and they had a glut of models that they needed judges. Like they announced several times, we need judges, please get in here and judge. So I don't know if they ever got that or if they were trying to just, get through as many as possible. But, I had built an FCM 36 that Scott actually got me, and it had Master Club tracks in it, which are the little metal length tracks with the resin pins. So I did not meddle with that particular one. And like I said, this isn't me complaining about it. It was hilarious because we were reading them, and one of the judges' feedback was, you took a risk with these tracks and it did not pay off. And we about died reading that. And it was, I thought it was hilarious. Like, I was a good sport about it, but it's nice because obviously with an IPMS show, you show up, if you didn't medal, you have no idea what it was. You can speculate, and good luck finding the judge that knocked yours out or whatever to ask him what it was. But like, that's why AMPS is great, because they'll give you those feedback. But I will say, for the gold, silver, bronze aspect of things versus 1, 2, 3, I have placed at IPMS shows with that FCM 36, and I did not place at AMPS. So it's not like they're handing out participation trophies. I'll just throw that in there.
Doc, what'd you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, the funniest one wasn't mine. I think it was Preston's, right? Like, that was the funniest. So I forget which model it was, but it had an antenna on, and it got damaged in transit, as most of mine did. And so it had it was bent. It was some German tank, right? And it had a bent antenna. So in his entry form, antenna damaged in transit or something, he wrote, it's bent. And the judging form came back and it said, antenna bent. Antenna shouldn't be bent. And we all just kind of started dying. Like, no Sherlock. Sorry, Scott, for the edit requirement. But I thought that was the funniest one. No, I mean, the judging was great. The gripe session's good because it just gets you out of the funk, right? And for like judging statements, I think the positive ones are also super helpful because you don't always know the good things you've done that got attention. And I find that when I critique people online too, it can be helpful to give specific positive feedback if I really like how you did your rust or whatever, because you can grow from that. And I had a couple silly negative ones that I thought were funny. I had a couple inconsistent dusts, just like JB had inconsistent mud. And, yeah, some places are dustier than others. I did that on purpose. The only real gripe I had, because a lot of it's subjective, or I think it's hard too. You're judging so much. We've talked about this offline, that they made good, like where they docked me points, I deserve to have points docked. But their explanation, they have a couple seconds to write a couple words. And I think sometimes they didn't expound, like they critiqued a figure and they're right. The figure wasn't great, but what they wrote was silly. But there's a lot of things to critique about that figure, and I didn't deserve full points. So I think it's a little hard on the judges to be able to write brilliant essays when you have 30 seconds to just jot a note or two down. That's really what they're doing. The only one I had that was a real gripe was 7 out of 8 models got research points, and the 8th one didn't. And I gave the same things for each model, right? I gave 4 or 5 pictures, historic picture, walk around picture, build picture, and descriptions of what I did. And that one seems to me not subjective, it's objective, right? So that's the only one but a half point didn't matter. That model was still getting a bronze no matter what. Otherwise, I thought the judging actually was pretty excellent. It's just kind of funny to read the feedback of each other's stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And as you mentioned, and Ian, like this is just laughing. This is just a little bit of post-show venting, having fun with beer and pizza, and certainly no disrespect to all those folks that put in a lot of work and a lot of time. It's just fun and cheerful to go around the room and understand what people have said. And TJ, I'll wrap with you. What was your favorite comment?
There weren't really. I didn't really have any really good, like, funny ones on mine. I guess the funniest one is I brought the PKA Friedrich that I just finished, and the comments were about the kneecap armor, and then they're like, kneecap or like knee armor not like aligned with like the both knees weren't aligned. I'm like, well, yes, because the legs are moving. Like, he's not standing straight. He's stepping forward with like one, because I kind of pose it where he's like kind of turning, he has his arms out, he's holding his Panzerschreck or Panzerfaust or whatever, and he's kind of like stepping forward. I'm like, well, yeah, the kneecap wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't line up against the thigh armor as much because it's connected to the shin armor. So if you're got one leg bent more than the other, it'll be, kind of off. So they all wrote that down, but then one judge just wrote kneecaps with a question mark. I'm like, what about them? He has them. Is that the question? Like, I don't understand. Like, the other ones were like, oh, kneecap armor not lined up. It's the one judge's kneecaps. And it was just like, oh, okay, cool. That's literally the only thing he wrote down. was
With a
kneecaps
question mark.
with a question mark. That model got gold. So again, this isn't sour grapes. Hopefully that's clear. We all did very well, but yeah, it's just funny, and I'm sure like I've judged amps, and I'm sure I've written down something kind of silly, and the guy that I judged probably looking at him like, what the hell is this guy talking about? So I know it goes both ways, but yeah, it was fun to just kind of vent a little and kind of laugh. And I did feel a little bit bad because my buddy Eric and Nick were over at the house, and they judged a lot of our models. They judged 2 of mine.
And we didn't know that until halfway through.
He didn't. He said he didn't know he judged mine, which I believe him because it was an older build. And afterwards, he's like, "Oh, that was yours." I was like, "Yeah." I knew that.
It was straight up. It was a straight up episode of Curbed. Enthusiasm. Like we get halfway through griping about, and we start, I think, brilliantly start with our lowest scoring models. Right, that's how we started going around. Yeah. So, it was just kind of funny to be like, this is my crap that got nothing. Let me like roast it, was kind of how it started. And then you see the poor 2 guys in the corner, and they're like, oh yeah, we judged the last 3.
They took it all in good stride. Eric's an awesome dude, and Nick's an awesome dude. They're good guys. They're members of my local AMPS chapter. And they like Eric took it to heart, not in like a negative way, but like as a way to get better at judging. Because as we were breaking down some of these scores and some of the comments, that's where the whole like, look, not everyone takes off points for the same thing. Don't do that. That's you're punishing the modeler harder than you should. So that happened to me on my Sherman, which got a silver, which, okay. Like I told him afterwards, I literally don't care, man. Like, trust me. But what you took points off for is wrong, because that's their features of the tank, which is fine. You don't have to be a subject matter expert, but that's where the table captain should kind of step in and be like, now, are we sure about this? And that is by his own accord, not what happened, which again, totally fine. Don't care.
No doubt. And again, I'm going to just hit the nail on the head one more time. This is not griping. This is just, having some fun, having some chuckles, and very grateful for all the time and effort put in by those judges. It's not easy. You're looking at a sea of models and you're wondering how the hell we're going to get through all of them in the weekend. And I did not judge, so you can bring your pitchforks against me in terms of volunteering, but I'll certainly do it next time. It is a fun experience. I think you'll talk to AMPS judges and they actually really enjoy it. It's a good camaraderie, good learning experience, and just overall a lot of fun. One thing I will mention, I keep mentioning names. We did forget a few. We got to shout out the crew from Arkansas. So Ron, David, and Ken and a couple of their folks made the trek over, and it was really great to see them. And just want to make sure that they're recognized as well, because they're a great supporter of the podcast and just great people all around. And I think TJ got a little something to take home there too.
I did. Ken gave me his M4 Baldwin build, which is awesome. He's an amazing modeler. I'm fortunate to have 2 builds of his. He gave me his Brumbar, I think last year in Texas. So he gave me a choice of builds to take home. That was one of them. He almost gave me his Easy 8, his Junkyard Easy 8. He would have if I wanted it, but he was like, if it influences your decision, I'll go ahead and say this is like my favorite model that I've ever built. I'm like, because that's also my favorite model that you've ever built. I was like, I will not take that one because I know how much it means to you, but I will take this Baldwin M4 because it is amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I think, Doc, did you take something home or did you only give away? I know you gave a Hetzer to Aaron.
No, Aaron and I traded. I couldn't fit much. Another good thing about the show, just slight comma, was the raffle, which I normally
that was great.
I don't care about raffles. They're usually, at least the other shows I've been to, mostly bad stuff, a couple marquee items. This raffle was full of great stuff, and we kept winning. It just had so much stuff that if you bought $20 of tickets, you were winning twice, it seemed, at least, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, by the end, my bags were slam full. I was giving away stuff I'd won to people because I just couldn't pack it all. So I couldn't trade much, but I traded Aaron my Hetzer build for his stupid basic kit build cheating model from IPMS Nats 2 years ago that took first place after he removed the photo etch in front of the judges, which was hilarious. And it beat me. I got second place in that category, so it means a lot to me to have that model next to my second place model. Though he did not supply the banned photo etch piece, which I wanted to reattach. So I'm going to have to do that. But I love that tradition of trading models, kind of like the World Cup trading jerseys after a game or something.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Ian, did you give or receive anything?
So Aaron gave me one of his favorite builds, which was the KV1 that he did.
Nice.
The Wilder series of stuff. It's on the black base, so I have that in my display case. Honestly, I was like, man, I'm going to give TJ this, but then I saw that once he got that Sherman model, I was like, dude, can't fit it. So I'm like, all right. So next time I see you guys, I'm doling out. Like, I'm not coming home with any of my own models. So I'm putting it at that. But yeah, so it was, that model's an awesome piece to have in my modeling case, because I know he really liked how it turned out, and I really liked how it turned out. So I'm honored to have that. So thank you, Aaron.
Oh, I also have Grizz's Churchill. He gave me that. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, nice. I also, let's see, I gave a piece to Rob Adams, and I gave Hollow Victory to Aaron. He promptly told me that Trash Day came on Wednesday, so that piece is now with Mother Earth. And I got to give a shout out to Rob Riv. He was kind enough to give me an unpainted model. He gave me his R35, which I'm super stoked to paint. Rob had a beautiful display there of his naked models. He had a few painted, but we love to give Rob a lot of crap about not painting. But in terms of modeling crispness, there are a few that come higher on the list than Rob Riv. His models are super tight. They are absolutely gorgeous, and it's a privilege to paint one. So I'm super excited to get on that. And with that, I think that wraps this little talk about AMPS. We've carried on a bunch where we thought we've ended, but something else pops up as Doc mentioned, the raffle. But I think overall, what's clear is the people. We've mentioned a lot. We've probably missed a few, and for that we apologize. But just know that it was a great event, and y'all made it what it was. And certainly we can't wait for Camp Hill next year. Super excited. Very hopeful that the same crew and more come to that. If you're even within close driving distance or flying, make the trek. It's a wonderful event around a wonderful hobby and with wonderful people. So with that, I'll end this episode. I'll end this segment. And I want to thank Scott for joining us. I'm sad that he didn't make it, but he was there vicariously through us, and we also called him a few times on FaceTime. But thanks, Doc, Ian, and TJ for joining us, and that'll conclude this session on the AMPS International Show. Thanks for listening to that special segment, listeners. Now it's time to talk about upcoming model shows, and I will turn it over to Scott.
All right. Thanks, JB. List is getting a little bit shorter as we're kind of in the middle of show season, but we still have quite a few. May 3rd and 4th is the 81st annual MFCA show in Mart. That's going to be held at the Radisson Hotel, Philadelphia East in Trevose, Pennsylvania. Calvin Tan's going to be a featured speaker at this year's show, and he's going to be giving a presentation on painting with the AK Gen 3 acrylics. If I was anywhere close, I'd go just for that. That sounds really cool. Anyway, you can find more details over at www.mfcaclub.com. Next, we have the Houston Model Mania show, which will also be held May 4th. That's at the Stafford Center in Stafford, Texas, and it has dual themes this year, which are May the 4th be with you, and also adversaries. They're going to have a great vendor area. The facility is reportedly really great, and they have a special Subarashi Mecha Award that they award to the best mecha. They are also implementing this year a gold, silver, bronze award system for their show. So we support them in that. We hope that turns out really, really good. Show that a bunch of us will be at, the Best of the West Model Show and Convention is going to be held on Saturday, May 18th at the Orleans Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. The show is put on by a group of 5 different modeling clubs and runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can contact Jay Bergeron on Facebook for more details, or look for Best of the West on Facebook. Also on May 18th, the Silverwing Clubs in Sacramento present their SilverCon 2024. This year's theme for their show is going to be 1944. The doors open at 9 a.m. and the show will be held at the Town and Country Lutheran Church in Sacramento, California. And for more details, you can check out IPMS Silverwings on Facebook, or you can contact Drew Savage. The 41st annual Smoky Mountain ModelCon will be held on May 25th at the Knoxville Catholic High School Gymnasium that's in Knoxville, Tennessee. This year's show theme is 1946 to 1955, and all of the details can be found over at knoxvillescalemodelers.com. Our buddy JC Osborne let us know about this one, June 22nd. From 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Oxnard, California, there will be the WonderCon 2024 model contest and swap meet. That's presented by IPMS Region 8 10 Wonders Club. The event's going to be held at the Murphy Auto Museum. An entrance to the museum and the contest is just $10. For more details, you can head over to the Ventura County IPMS page on Facebook. Also, Wonderfest, the premier sci-fi focused scale model convention, is going to be held in Louisville on June 1st and 2nd at the Crown Plaza Louisville Hotel. Our buddy Aaron Cook, I think, is planning on going to that one. I got to get to that. I don't think I'm going to make it this year, but I think everything I've heard about that show is it's really, really terrific. So if you're in the area, give that a try. We have some exciting news. A team of us here in Salt Lake are adding another open system model show to the calendar on June 22nd from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Salt Lake City. We will be presenting the inaugural first annual Rocky Mountain Expo. We actually have a segment that we recorded on this show. JB jumped on a call with myself, Shawn Earl, and Barry Beideger from Small Subjects to talk about this show. So let's go over and take a listen to that. Here you go.
Welcome, everyone, to a special segment of the Plastic Posse. I'm super stoked to be here with another co-host, Scott, and two other great friends of the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the Rocky Mountain Hobby Expo. It's an initiative that these three gentlemen and a few other have been working on for the past year, and I am super excited to dive into it. It's an alternative format show, and I think our listeners are going to be super interested to learn more about that. So with that, I'll introduce who's online with us today, and obviously, as I mentioned, a co-host, Scott. Scott, how are you today?
I'm doing really good, JB.
Outstanding. And we also have Barry Beideger from Small Subjects. So we paid him some money to come over. So appreciate that, Barry.
You bet.
And then lastly, we have Shawn Earl, another Utah native. Native? Am I wrong there? Scott,
no, you're correct. Born and raised.
Outstanding.
On the playground I spend most of my days.
Oh, that's a good song. Well, great. I'm so stoked for all three of you to be here. I'm really excited to talk more about the Rocky Mountain Hobby Expo. You know, to really just kick this off, maybe I'll ask you, Scott, to give a general introduction of what this show is, and then I'll ask a few targeted questions to Barry and Shawn.
Yeah, that sounds great. Appreciate it. Well, you know, Shawn and Barry and I obviously live pretty close together. We're in an AMPS club together, and, you know, we go to shows. So there's a little bit of a history, especially Shawn and I. We go way, way back. And we used to have a great show here that was kind of a consortium called The Gathering, and because of some personal conflicts and, you know, some of those things that sort of happened, that show went away. And you know, Shawn and I have talked over the years, I mean, at least a couple of times about, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could, you know, bring a show back, because the shows that have been left have been, you know, kind of small IPMS shows, and that's really kind of all we had. And so we started, I don't know, a couple of years ago, really working on that and found some like-minded people. Barry obviously is on our group, and we have Cameron Corliss in our group as well. Brandon Mickelson is in our group, and Josh Buck. And we really have kind of a common vision to have a show that's a little bit different. Barry and Jim talked to me a couple of years ago, and I know our listeners are sick of me talking about it, but they talked me into going to MMSI, and it just really blew my mind. And, you know, just having that different approach and the open system and all that kind of brings with it. But really, it was more than that. It was more the culture. And then John, of course, as you know, we all go to shows to be with people that we like and people that inspire us. And so we really wanted to put together a show, and we've been putting this together really intently for the last year. And we've got a great venue, which we'll talk about. And we got a great head of the contest in Barry, and we'll let him talk about that. But we're really, really excited. It's going to be June 22nd, and which is coming up fast. It'll be our inaugural event, and we couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah, I'm super excited. You decided to book it when I have tickets to Taylor Swift in London, so I'm kind of mad at you about that still. I'm like, Scott, one weekend I can't do, June 22nd. Oh, John, great. Hey, cool. That's when our show is. But no, I am very excited for you all. I do regret not being there, but Scott, you're going to come over and visit beforehand, and I'm going to give you some things to take over and display at the show, because I think
awesome.
What our listeners will find if they attend a show is a lot of great pieces of work on the table. And with those pieces of work, I'd love to talk to Barry and ask you a few questions. As we think about this show, an alternative to IPMS and other contest-based shows, one of the things, the key terminology, I think, surrounding this is juried exhibition. And Barry, if you could take a few moments to just talk us through what exactly that means.
Sure. The basic idea is that, a lot of us don't necessarily feel that modeling is a competition. There's nothing wrong with competition and winning, where it makes sense in sports and whatnot. But a lot of us feel like in the modeling world, it just kind of doesn't fit in. Good old Chet Payne, if you listen to our podcast, we mention him way too often, but what he always would say is, if you want to compete, take up tennis. And the idea with the juried exhibition is that you are awarded a medal based on the level of the work you present. It has nothing to do, very little to do with what others bring. You are just evaluated on what you bring at the time, not against other people. You don't win a gold medal at the expense of anybody else. You are awarded a medal at the level that the judges feel like you are at. So it's just an evaluation of your work.
Nice. Agree. And I think that's really cool. I was reading on your website, and feel free, any of you, to take this, but you talk about, juried exhibition, the approach to it. I saw on your website, there is a criteria, and it's a holistic approach to evaluating the piece. Would one of you talk about that?
Sure. You want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Fire away, Barry.
In other systems, and I don't want to claim that this is the only system or the absolute best system for all circumstances, but in other systems, it basically comes down to how many flaws can we find. And it doesn't really give you a good idea of how good the model is, really. You get an idea of how many, mess ups the modeler did, but it's just kind of all negative, and it's on all sides. It's just not a really positive experience. But we look at everything at the same time, and there are the criteria that we list, and this is based on the original open system that Shep Payne and others came up with decades ago. But the criteria are degree of difficulty, creativity, workmanship, painting and weathering, and then presentation and overall effect. And for each different type of modeling, like say stock out of the box, stock box kits versus detailed or scratch built, each one of those different types of modeling has different weights placed on those criteria. And we have a table on our site that shows those weights. And they can be, you can have any combination of those. And it's just a general idea of how you want to evaluate these models. And the idea is that you're telling people what we're looking at, so that they have an expectation of fairness, basically. But really an important part of this judging system is that you aren't, the judges, we accept that the judges are not completely objective. I think we trick ourselves into thinking in other systems that it's completely objective, but anybody who's judged in any system knows that it's a series of subjective decisions about, well, this flaw is worse than this, or this one has two minor flaws, is that worse than one major flaw, so on and so forth. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that we try to limit subjective judging. We try to limit, we try to limit any opinion based on style. We expressly want to stay away from that. but we do accept that it is an opinion of judges. So that has to be taken into consideration. I think it's an important thing to accept.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, this is something I'd love to just hit on real quick too. Is I think that goes. Every show has that. It's always based on a judge's decision, and they have inherent bias that they try to suppress. But at the end of the day, it's humans judging something subjective. And I think your approach and the way you're talking about it, it's really exciting. I think it's going to be wonderful for people attending. Maybe talk through. Listeners are always used to the traditional 1, 2, 3 system, but again, hitting home like, when they enter their model, they can expect their model to be judged right away, like AMPS, or is it they bring it to the table and then the process begins and it goes throughout the day? Maybe talk about like what do those logistics look like?
So in most open shows, you would let's say if it's a 2-day show, Friday and Saturday, after most of the entries are in, on Friday evening, the judges would, after the show is closed at 6:00 or whatever, they would go through their area and judge all of the pieces. And the basic idea, and this is something that people have a hard time understanding, the first thing they do is they go to a modeler's display and they choose which piece or set of pieces is likely to win them the highest award. They want to make sure that they're giving them the highest award, awarding the best piece they have. And then the second part of that is each of the judges alone, without sharing what scores they're giving the piece with the other judges, writes down what their score is for that piece. And then the head judge tallies them. So each individual judge has no idea until the awards are read what award that modeler got. Just the same as the modeler. In our system, we're kind of doing a little bit of a different system where we're going to do kind of an AMPS thing where we bring modelers' pieces in. First off, we're only going to have one category in our show. So the modelers' pieces are going to be brought in. There's going to be a team of judges that basically chooses from that modeler's pieces before it's ever put out on the table, which one is likely to give them the best award, the highest award. And then that piece is sent to a team of judges in the back room where it's evaluated and awarded the level they feel like it deserves. At that point, that modeler's pieces go out on the table in one place. And I think this is a really important part of the show. Each modeler will have a display with all of their work in one place. It's kind of, I don't know, it always irritates me in shows where I'm trying to discuss modeling with people and they say, well, I have an airplane over there and I have a tank over here and a figure over here. And it really adds to the social aspect of the show where a modeler can stand by his pieces and discuss it with people or go to other, modelers. And it's much more social and much more interactive.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think to add to that, Barry, is the important part of that is once the models get into you want to call it the judging room, is that the models are actually looked at by experts in that area. So armor guys are going to be judging armor. Aircraft guys that mainly build aircraft are considered experts are going to be judging the aircraft. Gundam guys are going to be there judging the Gundam. Car guys judging cars. And so it's not going to be a conglomeration of people getting together with, I don't know, maybe we'll have the, what do you call the judges that are just first timers,
OJT.
Yeah, OJT. Yeah. There might be some of that going on, but it'll come right down to the judging team and how that comes out too. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And Scott, I was going to hit on, as Shawn brought up, you'll have, dare I say qualified or experienced scale modelers, accomplished scale modelers, maybe rattle off some of the individuals that people can expect that'll be judges at this show.
Yeah, definitely will. This first year, we've got Rick Lawler that's coming in to help us judge armor. That's one good example. And we have a local guy here named Rich Magoni that if anybody's familiar with 72nd scale aircraft, he's terrific. He's going to be working on that. We're going to have Mark Bradley from over in your area, John, who is going to help us with figures. And, we're still working on that. And, we're not trying to be sort of exclusive, but we want people to have a little bit different experience at this show than a typical show. So we're not going to ask for volunteers. We are going to pre-qualify judges and kind of maybe borrowing a little bit from the SMC model. We're going to there's some glass cases in the foyer And we're going to ask judges to bring a piece of their work and put it in there so that people who enter their models can see what the judges who are evaluating their work have done on their own. And again, it's not to look down on anything else, but it's to give people a different experience and hopefully something that they'll enjoy and want to come back to year after year.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Having the display cases, it's a form of resume for those individuals that are helping support the show. But I think also what you're looking to create, I'm going to maybe speak for you, is essentially a way of honoring accomplished modelers and those individuals that are coming to judge. And I'll speak from the perspective of SMC. Putting a piece in the judge's case is more rewarding in ways than winning an award at the show, because you've been recognized by your peers. You're very well respected by your peers, and they want to recognize your, dare I say, qualifications or accomplishments, talent, approach to the hobby. And I think putting it in there, having your name associated with it, it's just a good feeling. And I think that helps drive, I think, excellence at a show and people wanting to come and support it. So I am super excited about this, calling out Rick Lawler. That's pretty amazing. A gentleman that is really well accomplished in the world of scale modeling, taking time to support this show. Who doesn't want to say, yeah, hey, Rick Lawler judged my stuff and this is what I got. That's really well done. And, same goes with all you folks online right now, with me. It's Barry Beideger. Holy shit. I just got, I got rewarded by him. He knows what he's talking about. At least I think so. But no, I think that's what it's going to be enjoyable. And it seems like, again, social aspect of this, in addition to the social aspect of, participants. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the same goes for judges as well. It's not a one-way street to the contestant where, hey, here's the results. Have a great day. Bye. We'll see you later. It's 4:00. We're packing up our stuff and leaving. But it's much more engaging than that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because, putting the models in the case in the foyer, not just to sort of say, hey, here's the judges, they're all that, but also, why do we go to a show? We go to a show, I think, partly to be inspired. And so when they walk in, they're going to see pieces immediately and they're going to be inspired. And then, John, to circle back, that's kind of the beginning of your journey at the show. You come in, you register, you put your models in the show. And then at the end of the show, after the contest is over, we're going to have the judges in each category. So, Shawn mentioned the armor judges and the aircraft judges. And we're going to have all those people available to discuss, what they found with the entrance and make suggestions. And truly, not just have some guy like stuck way off in the corner, in the dark corner, but, have them really truly available. And that, again, kind of talks to the social aspect, but also the feedback. We want to treat our entrance. Shawn and Barry are sick of me saying this, but we want to treat the modelers that spend the time and the money as customers, because without them, there is no show, and all the other benefits and great, conversations and everything that go along with that.
Yeah. I think providing that show, this different venue on how we look at that, when you're talking about competition, I look back on my own experience when I first started getting into the local show, the gathering. Yeah, I'll tell you, I got into to compete because I was like I think my stuff's pretty good. Get that first, second, and third, whatever the case may be. But I got to a point entering shows that I got tired of that part of it. I wanted to improve myself. And that's where the aspect that you were talking to, Scott and John, about coming and rubbing elbows with guys that have the same interest as you, seeing their work, talking to them personally of how they do. Rick Lawler, for crying out loud. I can't believe he's going to be at the show. I'm gushing here. It's just the inspiration that you get from being around people who enjoy the same as you do. And especially aren't, how we say, big-headed about the hobby. They're just so willing to share their techniques and the way that they do things. It blows me away. And this is just like the perfect venue for that.
100%.
I think another thing that's important too, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned, if you want to just bring your models and not enter them in for judging, you can also do that. It's not the judging aspect, the so-called competition is not the only part of the show, as Shawn's talking about. It's hanging out with other modelers and seeing what everybody has worked on. So definitely, if you don't feel like you want your stuff judged, bring it and just don't enter it for competition, for judging.
And speaking on that, it's like, again, hanging out with guys, there's going to be so much more to do, both on and offline when it comes to being the show or hanging out later. There's so much around the Salt Lake area. One in specific is the Hill Air Force Base Museum. It's free. You can go in and walk around. They're just getting ready to open up a new portion, a new wing that's going to have some new aircraft in it. And I've heard tell it's going to be done prior to showtime. So that's going to be a fun spot to spend some time in. If you want to go a little bit further north up into Ogden, if you're like me and you're a closet train modeler, you like trains, HO or N scale, they've got a great train museum up there. And it'll take you at least an hour or two to walk around through it. And then co-located with the train museum is the Browning Arms Museum, another venue up there that you can just spend an hour or two just walking around in. There's just going to be lots to do, especially at the show. I hope I'm not getting too far ahead of myself here, but the show's located at the Utah Army National Guard, the Army Aviation Support Facility. There's two facilities, but the address is 7606 South on Airport Road in West Jordan. So it's pretty much smack dab in the middle of the Salt Lake Valley. And with that venue, it is a National Guard Armory, so it may not be the coolest venue, it's not going to have a lot of neat stuff attached to it, but one of the cool draws to this is that where, shall we say, I have a connection with the facility. being the Aviation Command Sergeant Major, I have access to a lot more than the average bear. So we'll be able to go across the street, walk through the Apache hangar, get some hands-on, up close, touch maybe a rocket or a Hellfire missile, hold a rack of 30 millimeter rounds. Really get up and close, especially with the new TACOM kits that have come out. You're going to get some good up close detail shots of that. And then we can head out onto the flight line, check out what's out there. We've got Blackhawks both dressed up as regular utility helicopters and medevac, and we can get up good and close to them as well. So we can spend a good hour outside of that as a little tour of the facility. But back across the street, we've got plenty of venues for food within a mile of the location. There's a hotel that's actually a couple of them. They're just across the airfield from the facility as well. So everything's nice and close, but it's going to be a great time. I'm really excited too. This model show, I've been to the 1, 2, 3 and the gold, silver, bronze, but this is going to be a total different event that is just, I think, going to blow the top off it. This is going to be exciting and be coming back year after year for this.
That's awesome.
I agree. And it's well lit, John. It's really, really a good venue. Lots of space, lots of rooms. We'll have some seminars. And the facility is really, really good for judging. We really lucked out. Shawn kind of suggested it, but he kind of downplayed. Yeah, I have this place. You guys can come look at it. You want, and we were kind of blown away. Right as you walk in, there's a great big foyer that's perfect for people bringing their models and registering. And then right off to the left, there's these banks of offices that all have, they're all connected, and they all have these great big conference room tables that are perfect for putting a model down and, putting it on a lazy Susan and really just getting it, taking your time and judging. It's great. And then at the end of it, there's a little room that's got a little computer. It's really, really a great venue for a show. We're really fortunate for Shawn's connection and to get a chance to be in this venue. And as he said, it's close to, logistically just about anything you'd want. But again, I think it's going to be a different event. I think it's, we go to the Salt Lake City IPMS show every other year, support them. We support the Boise Club. Some of them are going to come down. We go down to Best of the West, where JB, we're going to be going down to that here in a few weeks, and they're coming up to support us too. So, this isn't a us or them. We're better than you. You're better than us. This is very much a community event, but I really feel like if people come, they're going to have a different experience than just sort of another traditional IPMS show, which is really our goal.
That's awesome. And maybe I'll just keep on the theme with you, Scott, in terms of the show itself. It's June 22nd. When does it start? When can people expect to show up? Registration, timing, and feel free everyone else to chip in. But I'll just tee it up, like in terms of day of logistics. What are the key times that people should be aware of?
Yeah, show opens at 9 a.m. and it will conclude about 5 p.m. And you'll bring your models. We do have I'll let maybe Barry talk to this, but you can pre-register online. We'd encourage people to do that. So we kind of have have an idea, and also let Shawn talk to if you want to buy some tables and sell some models, or if you have some products that are related and you like to come be a vendor with us. So we have all those kinds of things. But yeah, show up at 9:00 and we'll have some staff there that will work with you. We're gonna treat the models very, very well. You won't see any models being picked up bare hands. We're going to use trays, and we're going to be, very, very careful again with that modus operandi of each of these modelers is one of our customers. Barry, you want to talk about some of the pre-registration?
Yeah, we plan to have the pre-registration site finalized probably in a couple weeks. You'll be able to go in and sign up, and you'll get the registration forms so that you can fill them out before you get there, and it'll be nice and handy.
Nice. And on top of that, we've got the vendor tables that you talked to, Scott. Those are $25 a piece to start with. But as we get closer and closer to the show, we need to start shoring up what we've got. And then after, I think within about a couple of weeks of the show, the price of those tables will go up to $30.
June 1st. June 1st, they go up to $30.
Yeah, June 1st. Okay. So, yeah, get your tables while you can. It's we've got lots of space, lots of table access, limited walking around the facility. So I have to kind of keep the reins on where people go, but we'll make sure that everybody knows where the tables are at. They won't be hard to find. And
we can't flip any switches in the cockpits of the helicopters, right?
Nope.
Okay.
We might can let you sit in the Apache, but that might take an act of Congress for that.
That's awesome.
If
Scott,
you can sit in it all day long.
Scott, who do you have for vendors? Can you list any off?
Still working on that right now. We have a title sponsor that we think we have, and we'll announce that soon. And then we have several people in the Salt Lake area that have pre-registered and bought tables. But we think we're going to have a pretty good spectrum. I would imagine as the inaugural event, we probably won't have any huge, Tamiyas. That'd be great, George and Fred. But probably won't have them this time. But Rick is coming in, and AK will have a table at the show, so that's really, really cool. But yeah, just hoping to have kind of a broad spectrum, and again, we'll have some seminars that we put together, and as the inaugural event, we'll see what goes right and see what goes wrong, and undoubtedly next year will be even better. But we're excited. I can also say that the awards are being made by Bases by Bill. And they're kind of a new concept that we're really excited about. So that's going to be really cool. Again, kind of a different approach to go along with the idea of having a different experience at the Rocky Mountain Expo.
Nice. Speaking of awards, we've talked about gold, silver, bronze. Barry, I'll kick this one over to you. I assume there's going to be theme or special awards, like your typical best aircraft, best armor, best of show. Is that part of the event as well, or can they just expect maybe a best of show? Yeah, we do have some special awards, and Scott, I might have to have you help me on these. We just finalized these, but we're going to have a judges grand, right?
Judge's choice. We'll have a most popular, so kind of a audience vote, right? And we'll have a best of show, and then some special sponsored awards as well.
Yeah. Did you want me to go over those
Sure.
special sponsored awards? So we have, along with the People's Choice and the Judge's Choice awards, we have the President's Choice, which is we're naming it the Alex Earl Award after Shawn's son, and he's going to be choosing that one. We have Best Junior, sponsored by John Vickus. Best Presentation, sponsored by Plastic Posse. And then we have the Most Imaginative, sponsored by Small Subjects. And then we have the Best Weathered Subject, sponsored by Wasatch Modeler.
Awesome. And I think it's safe to say, if someone wanted to reach out, I'll say the Modeling Insanity podcast or any other podcast that's our close friend, maybe the Mojo, they can certainly have, there's still an opportunity to sponsor an award.
Sure thing. Yep.
This is great. So in addition, you mentioned the venue. It's over at the South Valley Regional Airport, very close to that on the National Guard base. If people were driving in, let's say if they were coming from Denver, how's that trip into Salt Lake? I don't know much about Salt Lake. So are we in the northern part of the city, southern part? Where are we in terms of like city center in Salt Lake City?
All right. Salt Lake City, kind of being up in the northeast corner of the Salt Lake Valley. We're probably about 20 miles from city center.
Okay.
So if you to go out in the middle of the valley, gosh, 7,800 South is about the well, that is the southern entrance into the facility. 6,200 South is the northern entrance into Airport Road. It's fairly straightforward, easy access coming from the airport, or if you're driving in off of I-80 or coming from I-70 from the south up to I-15, you can take 7,800 South, be 7,200 South actually off of I-15, and that'll take you straight to Airport Road. If you drive up to I-15 to 215, you can get off onto Redwood Road down to 6,200 South, and 6,200 South driving westbound will take you straight to the northern entrance of Airport Road. Airport Road's easy access. It follows the western fence along the edge of the airport there. And the facility is easy enough to find. The large flagpole out front, you'll see the helicopters on the east side of the street. The armory side is the west side, which is where the show will be. We'll have banner hanging out front, so it'll be easy to be identified. The facility has got parking galore. On the north side of the building, there's probably over 100 spots. On the east side of the building, you've got at least 10 handicap spots for those that need them. And there's just plenty of parking all along that west side of or east side of the building. And then access will be through the main front doors, glass doors that we'll have people there to meet and greet and make sure you get sent to the right direction with your models. So easy access.
Awesome. This is fantastic. Thanks so much, Shawn. And certainly thank you to Barry and Scott as well. I'm very excited about this show. As I mentioned, unfortunately, I can't be there, but I think what we'll see online is a plethora of photographs and hopefully video from the event. As these fine folks have mentioned, this is their first event, but I think it's very exciting. I think, Rome wasn't built in a day, but they're certainly creating something special here that, who knows, 5-10 years from now, this might be the premier show in the United States. It's a bold claim. I know all, but I'm really excited about it. They have, they got a lot of talent behind them, a lot of dedicated folks, as mentioned, the three online right here, and then also their team as well in Salt Lake City. So what you have here, listeners, is a dedicated, passionate group of scale modelers that are looking to create something special to share, the hobby, share the conversations, share moments, and create memories, with fellow hobbyists. So I'm certainly excited. I'm going to kick it over to Scott to take us home. But I want to thank you both Shawn and Barry for joining us on the Plastic Posse.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much, JB. The first thing I want to talk about is, one thing I talk about on the Posse a lot is, I go over to Commies Fest and a lot of events over in the Denver area, talk about sort of the richness of that modeling community over there. And this show, these gentlemen that are here with me, Barry and Shawn and Cameron and Brandon and Josh and the community that we have here in Salt Lake is a really rich community too. And so we're really excited to kind of showcase some of that. We're hoping that we get some people coming from out of town. I think they'll be impressed with that. And then, we talk about, supporting other communities. I mentioned the Boise IPMS chapter with Brian Geiger and Jeremy Elliott and those guys up there. That's a terrific group. They're going to support us. Doug Reed over there in Oregon, and that community is really great. We got the Reno chapter over there with Cody Kaczynski and the Vegas consortium with Joe Porche and his group of modelers over there. But we've benchmarked a lot of things, and we've set the bar kind of high for ourselves. And I think along the way we've kind of looked at each other and maybe are we trying to do too much here? But like John said, we really want to put something on that people are going to remember. And after going again to MMSI and really just enjoying that experience, bringing a show like that, even on a limited scale to begin with, to Salt Lake City out here in the Intermountain West is something that I'm really excited, and these guys are amazing to work with. So anyway, thanks for taking the time, John. Appreciate it.
It's a magnificent 7.
Awesome. Well, thanks all. Hopefully tune in more, and we'll certainly talk about the show more. And I know Barry will highlight it on his show. So adios, listeners.
Well, that was a lot of fun to talk about. We're super excited about this show. We want to build something special here in Salt Lake City, and really excited to put that on. Hopefully some of you can join us. Grant's coming out to join us, and that's going to be great. I think we're going to have a good time. Well, let's head on over to Mr. Smith and talk about some feedback.
All righty. Well, let's jump in. We have a note from David Kettler, who asks, he says, I am interested in participating in shows new to me, wondering about the proper etiquette and rules regarding entering the same piece in different shows. Also, can you repurpose a previously entered piece, such as a building that you can include in a bigger diorama, or say an individual figure or a vehicle kit that competed that you then add to a diorama as a new entry, or should every entry be 100% new?
Yeah, we can talk about that real quick. Number one, it depends on the rules of the show you go to. Every show, especially IPMS shows, should have a written set of rules somewhere, usually on their website, could be on their Facebook page, whatever. And that will tell you what you can and can't do. As far as etiquette goes, you can enter whatever you want, really wherever you want. It doesn't matter. You can I take multiple builds to different shows. Some shows have rules where if some IPMS shows specifically have rules where if this won at this region contest, you can't enter it in another one. That's pretty few and far between, and it works on the honor system most of the time because they're not gonna know. To me, I think that's a dumb rule. Like, who cares if it's not the same show? Why should it matter? The regions are large. You could drive 4 hours and be in the same region. So I can't, because it won here, I can't drive to 2 other states away and enter it. But if that's the rules, that's the rules. Then as far as like using stuff in different stuff or different entries, again, that's mostly in the rules. Some smaller shows probably don't really have rules about that. There's definitely rules for the IPMS national contest about what you can and can't do. But to me, yeah, if you painted a single figure and it won an award, you can put it in a diorama as part of the diorama. To me, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because you're not going to be judged just on that one figure. It's going to be the whole thing. But there could be a rule that says otherwise. Yeah, it all depends.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what TJ said. I think traditionally, and kind of how I approach shows, you can always go up and sometimes you can lateral. So if you win at local shows, you take it to the regionals and then you take it to the IPMS nationals. Traditionally, you haven't been able to go back, but the rules seem to have been really lax lately, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, especially some of the shows that follow the IPMS nationals, if you win at the Nats and you have to put your model away afterwards, that kind of sucks. So I think some shows, especially ones that are held in September, are flexible in that regard. I will say the one no is definitely if you've won at a show and you take it back to the same show the next year, that's kind of cheeky. And that happens out here in Colorado, folks. There's one modeler that we know very well. I don't know his name, but he enters the same 72nd scale tanks with the same level of dust, just with a little bit like a year's worth more on it. They're entered every year. And I don't mean to call this person out. I guess I am, but that's probably not cool. But certainly taking models to different shows. A good example, AMPS. I took a dozen pieces to AMPS. Those pieces, some of them have gone to the IPMS Nationals in place, but they've never gone to the AMPS show. And the same goes for SMC. Like, I took a piece that I won at the IPMS Nationals to that show because it was one of my best pieces. So it's a different society or a different type of show. So I guess it all depends. But as TJ mentioned, do what you think is right. Honor system is probably the best approach to this. If it feels weird and you're like, I don't know about this, probably don't do it. And then you can always ask the show organizers as well. But just try to do the right thing. That's bottom line.
One other caveat that I will mention is a lot of open system shows, and to sidebar, AMPS is not truly an open system. People always say that, and it's a misnomer. When I say a truly open system, I mean like the Atlanta Figure Show, MMSI, MFCA. That's true open judging. Now, I know at Atlanta, you can bring the same thing every year. It doesn't matter if it won a medal. If it's part of your display, you can bring it. They don't care. And that was made very clear to me the first time I went there. And I don't do that. I brought, I think when I went this year, I brought all new stuff. I didn't bring any repeats, but people definitely do. Because a lot of those shows, the whole point's like to show off your body of work so other people see it. And the judges that year may not pick that piece to judge. Just because it won a medal one year doesn't mean they're going to pick it the next year. If you have something new that they think is better, that's the one they're going to judge, because that's how it works there. They pick one of your pieces and that's the one that gets judged. So yeah, it all depends. The number one thing you should do, read the rules.
Yeah, I echo that. And the other thing is find somebody who's been to that show or just bring your models and have them in your car. And if you're nervous about it, go in there and just kind of ask around, ask people, when you're entering your models, they'll tell you. But I think what JB and TJ said is right. Just don't bring, the same piece over and over and over to the same show every year. The purpose of these events is to get together and to check out each other's work and inspire each other and, use the show as positive impetus to help you, use that deadline to say, hey, I want to have a new piece of that show next year. I've been a couple years in a row. It's time to put something new on the table. So anyway, that's what I think.
What were you going to say, Grant?
I was just going to say that basically the same thing you said, TJ. You nailed it on the head. The only thing I would actually, that's okay. Don't worry.
Sorry, buddy.
You were ahead of me. So the only thing I would say is that bring what you want. If you want to change something, take a model tank, then put it on a diorama, do it. If you want to put a figure on a diorama or pull a figure off of a diorama, put it as a figure, go ahead, do it. I just think that, models have shelf lives. Entrants have shelf lives. Let's remember that. We don't want to keep seeing the same stuff over and over again. Like Scott said, use this as a growing process. Use the show as a growing process. Build something for the show. Next year, give yourself a goal of building something else. But that's all I got to say.
One other thing I'll add too, and TJ this will definitely, he knows, some modelers, I'll use Pete Ushern as an example. I think Jeff Fellers does as well. They will build a vehicle first and they will display that vehicle and enter it. And then that vehicle, like with Pete, I think most of his models, even though they're a single vehicle one year, they are always destined for a diorama. So I think that's an important thing too, is that's a certain style for people as well, or approach, I should say, where they will build the vehicle, like Jeff's Churchill. I suspect that'll make its way into a killer diorama.
Oh, yeah, so, it is 100%.
So that's, I think, listeners as well, that's a pretty cool approach too. Dedicate, focus on a vehicle, and then bring it over and integrate it into a diorama. So that's a different approach too.
All right, moving on to a letter who got from Joe McCaslin from Northeastern Washington and really liking the latest episode. Loved the discussions. Got to say that my favorite part of any build is the construction part. I really enjoy the making of simple shapes and try to portray complex ones. I am more in the zone during construction than any other part. I also have to comment that my builds are made up of mistakes. I have been known to fully get a build to redo it from the frame up multiple times. One that I remember and I'm reminded of often is a 1/32 scale P40B as a cutaway, gutting and rebuilding the interior 12 different times. Like I said, my builds are full of mistakes. Our friend Robbie Knopfs shares, definitely your best episode to date. Not sure whose resume is going to top John's. That was such a good interview with JR. He's such a prolific and inspiring artist. Thanks for the very interesting and nostalgic interview.
Yeah, we haven't interviewed too many people that have won Emmys and not been nominated for Oscars. So that was pretty great. But John's a gentleman, and we've been wanting to do that for a while. So we appreciate his time.
Got one more from Lee Fogel. Hi, guys. Really enjoyed the latest episode with John Rosengrant. Pretty awesome to have him on the cast, and it was a terrific interview. Also, I did upgrade to Deputy Marshal March 1st, as your podcast helps me both at the bench and to find just a bit of calm and some smiles. So I wanted to do my part and help a bit more. I know a few folks who have said how much your podcast helps them get through tough times, depression, and loss of mojo. Depression runs on my mom's side of the family and sure hits me. You guys do a bigger service to the community than you may realize, so thank you for that.
I just want to say thanks, Lee. Lee is a great person. He's from the Midwest. We missed him at AMPS. He certainly hung out with iBones models before. Lee is a great guy. I'm so happy that he's a listener, and we're very grateful for your support.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you so much, Lee. And just thanks for taking the time to write in and share those comments with us. Really appreciate it.
Okay, that wraps up my feedback. I guess, TJ, we have another discussion?
We do. I thought about this the other day, and I had asked, I think I asked like Ian and I think JB and a couple other people, just kind of what's a build of yours that you feel like has, I put in air quotes, underperformed, either in terms of placing at a show or attention on social media. And I know I know I have one. Most people do have that one where you think it's really good. You take it to a show and it doesn't win anything. Or, it's happened at like a figure show where I've had a couple of figures. I'm like, this is the one they're going to pick. And then it gets totally ignored and they pick something else, which is still cool. But, what's the build of yours that you think is really good that just kind of doesn't get any attention? JB, I'll start with you because I know you got one.
Yeah, I got to pick out my Tacom Panther A. It's in the diorama Hollow Victory. I think, like you said, TJ.
Oh, that's Aaron's favorite diorama.
That's right. But, Trash Day was Wednesday. So it's with Waste Management now, apparently. So, yeah, I think I got to go with my Panther A. It was a model that I've pushed myself more than ever before. And I thought I just thought I nailed it and leveled up, essentially. We've talked about leveling up, and maybe that's a topic we can address again sometime soon because we've all leveled up, I feel. But it was a level up build, posted online. I think it got decent attention online, but man, it shows. It's just like it is just the the ugly duckling, the one that everybody ignores. And not saying I need to be recognized, not that at all, to be honest. But I just thought that in my eyes, I thought I nailed it. In terms of the vehicle itself. Now, granted, the diorama as well, Hollow Victory, it's okay. I wish, looking back, I wish I did more variety with the groundwork and maybe some terrain undulation. But it's one that I felt that I just thought I nailed it and didn't hit as much as I thought it would in the scale modeling world, and that's okay. But I enjoy it. I'm very happy that it has a home now with one of its only admirers. So I'm really stoked about that, to say the least. But yeah, that's one where I thought, oh, well, onward and upward to the next one. So yeah, Hollow Victory, Tacom's Panther A. And I do want to send a special shout out. An individual that gave that to me was Patrick Perales, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But his memory lives on with that, and very grateful for his support of that project. And I'm happy that it's in a caring and loving home now. So yeah, that's mine.
Doug, what about you? Do you have a build that kind of you feel is underappreciated by your peers or judges or just in general?
Really, no, I don't know. I don't have a very high opinion of my own builds, so I don't really fall into feeling like something's underappreciated. Maybe I underappreciate what I build more than anything.
Do you have one that you underappreciate?
Well, usually every build that I finish, I underappreciate, and almost every build I look at months later and I think, that's really pretty good. But I don't enter much. I don't show off a lot. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm not trying to sound disingenuous. I just don't feel real highly about a lot of what I do.
You should. Your shit's good. I've told you that a bunch of times.
I've heard that. And I can see what people say. It's just, I see my flaws and, I don't know, just build for myself anyway. So it's all good.
That's fine. I respect that. What about you, Grant? You're giggling over there.
I'm giggling because Doug's a hell of a modeler, and I think his stuff is fantastic, and it's just funny to me. It's just funny. For me, Xenos. I did a Xenos figure bust that Scott has.
Well, I don't undervalue it.
I know you do, and I appreciate that. I thought that was really big for me. That was the first really bust that I've ever done. That was hard metallic paints. So it was a 3D print, which was new to me at the time. Skin tones and everything. And I thought, hey, this is big. It did okay online. It ghosted everything else. It was never won awards, never won anything. So I just, it's kind of surprised to me that maybe I could have go back and done different or something like that. Worked on something made it a little bit better, but it kind of surprised me. That's mine.
What about you, Scott?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I don't really, kind of think about it in this way. I don't tend to share a lot of stuff on social media. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I know maybe if I can flip it just a little bit, I know that I'll go to a show with you guys and sometimes I'll see a piece that you've done. And it's really surprising to see somebody else's work that you think, oh, that's a shoe-in, that's going to crush the competition, and it doesn't. Grant mentioned Thanos, which I think is just gorgeous. The wooden plinth that's on and everything is really gorgeous. But Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to just say the same thing as Doug, but I don't build for those reasons. So if somebody thinks it's great and it wins something at a show, then I'm like, cool, that's awesome. But yeah, I don't really think about it that way. I don't know, TJ, what about you? I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
I've got two things, and I had one when I originally thought of this. There was one that stood out in my mind immediately, and then thinking about it again when JB was talking, I came up with another one, and I'll probably go ahead and speak for JB too, just so we're kind of clear. I know, at least for me, and I'm sure JB, I don't build models to win medals. I like winning medals with models that I build, and I'm not trying to insinuate that anyone here was saying that, but in case it's not clear to other people that maybe that don't know me as personally or as well personally as you guys do, I like winning medals just like anyone. Like, who doesn't like getting a medal handed to them for literally anything? But yes, just so anything that I've not won with, it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't change my opinion on the piece. But my first one was I did a bust, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe. It was called PE92. It was like a android guy. It was, I think, from Hera Models. Awesome little figure, or bust, really, not a figure. And I painted it in this like purple and white scheme, and it was like I did this stippling technique. I did OSL for like the first time, and I'm like, man, OSL is actually pretty good. Like, I think OSL is like hard as hell, and I'm like, this kind of doesn't completely suck. Obviously, it's not that great. I'm like, I know, as I've told Scott, we've kind of had this conversation, you and I know where my level is, and I know what's above me, and I know what's below me, and I know what's on the equal with me. I'm comfortable with all of that. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And I've taken it to multiple shows, and it's never done anything. I've taken it to figure shows, and it's not gotten any attention. It's never been the piece that's picked out of my display to be judged. And I've taken it to IPMS shows. It's just been completely ignored. And I was just like, I don't know why, because I'm like, man, this is like really good. And when you look at it, like I worked really hard on it, and just seems like no one gave a crap at a show, which again, I don't really care. It's awesome. It's in my display cabinet over here. I love looking at it. It's one of my favorite things that I painted. And then the other one is my captured Stug 3, which I think last year at San Marcos finally won an IPMS award. And I've taken that to like probably 10 IPMS shows, and it's never placed, except last year. I think it got second. And it was probably a default win, because I think the category it was in was pretty weak. I see JB smiling because I think he judged that category.
I did not judge that category.
Okay.
I did not, but I'm smiling because I think it was, well, Brian, I think Brian Krieger beat you.
He probably did, because it was open topped allied, even though it's not. I mean, I guess it has, based on markings, it's allied because it's American captured. Yeah. And it's placed at AMPS. I took it to AMPS Nats last year, and it won the gold, which was cool. But yeah, it had been to like a ton of IPMS shows and never placed ever. And I'm like, why? I think this is really good. It has an interior. Also, I hate the open top rule at IPMS. It just, in AMPS has it too. That's probably what works against it, because it's up against crap that is fully open top with all this extra detailing, and you can see the transmission in my piece, and that's pretty much it. A little bit of the fighting compartment, because I've got figures in the hatches, but then the front on a Stug, they have those two front hatches where the driver sits, and I guess a co-driver, I don't know, but only the one's open, so you can kind of see the driver position and the transmission and stuff. Yeah, those are mine.
I really love that purple guy. I don't know. Same thing with Thanos. I think
Scott just really likes purple.
Yeah, I really just like purple. No, I think it was, I really like that piece of yours. It's one of my favorites. And I'll go back to saying I've always kind of been surprised that it doesn't do better, but we all see things differently. So,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure that's a part of it, but yeah, I love that bust. It's one of my favorites that you've ever done.
Thank you.
I'll also mention, I think Doug brought up a really good point, and I feel that modelers definitely undervalue their work. I'll use an example. Frank Perrone, friggin' awesome dude. We met him for the first time in Atlanta, and he was very bashful about his KV with Adam Wilder's turret on it. And that thing is frickin' stellar, but it kind of just goes to show very humble person. And I do think that some modelers undervalue their work, and maybe that's just their character. and their human nature to be very humble individuals. But I'll use Frank as that example where his work is like TJ called out his T-34 that he's building, and his KV that he built with Wilder's turret is absolutely fantastic. And I know that he undervalued his work. So that's why I'm calling him out, because his work is awesome. And there's many more modelers like him. You know, Jim Bates is another example. I think Jim doesn't understand the quality of work that he puts out. And I'm sorry to, I guess, put him on blast, but, individuals like Jim and Frank, very good, humble people, great people.
Yeah, let's roll with that a little bit, because that is an interesting phenomenon that Scott used to give me a hard time about it too, with my figures or whatever. I'm like, these aren't that good. He's like, no, they're amazing. I'm like, but they're not, Scott. They're fine. Like, seriously, they're fine. I've been to where they're amazing. I'm not on that level. Like, not even close. I'm not even playing the same sport as some of these people. So and that's fine. And a lot of modelers are like that. And I don't know. It's cool. Like, Doug definitely undervalues his models. I think Doug's models are freaking amazing. And I would love to have one in my collection, because I don't have one. I don't have one from anyone except for JB. I have one of I have two because Jensen didn't have room for it, so I kept it. I have one of JB's. That's it. But I know Scott's got like 8 of mine, but he's got more of my models than I probably have.
I have a TJ Haller wing in my collection.
But I would say probably everyone here definitely undervalues their own work, because I've seen it all. I mean, I've known you guys for 4 years, and I've seen all of your all's work. And unfortunately, I don't have much of it in my collection, which I would like to rectify at some point. But it's almost kind of funny, because there's like two competing like opinions of a lot of modelers. There's people either think their shit is just like the best ever, even when it's not, or they just think it's terrible. There's like very few like in between, like, yeah, it's good, it's okay. Like, people are like, man, this really sucks, or, oh, everything I do is like amazing. It's just like an interesting dichotomy between the two like competing types of scale modelers. I think more people should feel better about their work, 100%. And me personally, I will bounce between the two. I know Scott's probably heard it from me. I know JB's probably heard it from me. I've done work that I'm like, this freaking sucks so bad. I hate this so much. My Churchill, I freaking hate that thing. It is terrible in my opinion, but I've had tons of people tell me it's great. I'm like, it's not. I'm going to strip it for parts because I want the tracks off of it and I want the Sherman barrel out of it and all this other stuff. And then other times I do something, I'm like, man, this is really freaking good. Like, holy cow, I'm amazing, even if I'm not really. Does anyone else like kind of bounce between those two?
Oh, yeah.
Am I the only one?
No, you're not the only one. I think it's funny. What I also think is funny, too, is when you sit there and not you, but when modelers sit there and they say, oh, this sucks and sucks and sucks more. And then it wins and wins and wins and wins and wins. And it's funny how that works, too. And I think that's just the attitude of the modeling community. I think you're very straight on about there's only really two. I'm done with it, and I'm glad I'm done with it. I wish I could have done better. Or this is the best thing I've ever hit a table, or a Fisher or whatever. I kind of lead to myself. I don't know where I land at, but I'm not this is the best thing I've ever done, because I just finished a model today or yesterday, and I hate it. I really do. I simply hate it. It's not good, in my opinion, and I don't think it's good, and I'm pretty sure it's just not. But that's just me. And so it's just one of those things where, the idea of what we see with our eye and what other people see with their eyes, that's just going to be the difference. But I'll tell you what, I like being around people that don't like their stuff more than I like the people that love their stuff. Because, it's always nice to see, when you point stuff out. Doug, for example, your TIE fighters that you painted with the metallic paint, phenomenal. Those look beautiful. Those are the color on those is spot on. You've done things with those TIE fighters that no one else has done before. It's great. And, stuff like that. And it's nice to see, modesty, I guess, too. So I don't know. That's what I feel.
I don't know. I appreciate you saying that. Modesty can be kind of embarrassing because you don't want to, like, I love to have praise for what I do. Mm-hmm. I never, ever want to seek it out. I never want somebody to think I'm looking for you to make me feel better about this. But when I say I'm not thrilled with my stuff, I'm not saying that because I'm just trying to be humble. I'll tell you when I think I've done something really well. But I don't look for for praise. If it comes, I love it. And I do appreciate the few medals that I've won here and there. It's great. It's a nice thing to make me feel like I've done something well. But I'm not looking for it. And I just don't. You're not going to hear me tout my stuff all that much.
I mean, getting recognized by your peers is a good feeling. Even if at the end of the day, it's a little plastic bauble that doesn't really matter, right? Like, it's a medal that when you get to the end of your life, is anyone really going to care how many IPMS medals you won? Probably not. Like, your kids aren't going to give a crap, right? Like, I know mine probably won't. They're like, oh, cool, those are dad's medals. He's dead now. We're just going to throw these in the trash. No one's ever going to miss them. But it's still cool to get that recognition. I enjoy it. And I like hearing from you guys and from my other friends that, like, hey, this is really cool. I really like this. Though I will say, probably the best thing is people that aren't in our hobby, because it doesn't matter what you do. They're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Holy shit. You painted all of that detail. That's like what I hear from every single person that has never built a model. You show them one. I could show them like literally the worst model ever, and they think it's amazing. And then of course the question is always, you painted all that detail? And like, there's literally it's a TIE fighter. There's literally no detail on it. But yes, I painted it all. Yeah, I did a really good job, right?
The number one memory from the last commies that I have about winning those, I had 2 third places, and my favorite thing is always going to be they had a 13 or 14-year-old kid announcing the winners, and he pronounced Doug as Dew. It was Dew Smith. I don't know how he got it, and that's fine, and I'll always remember that. I mean, it took me a few seconds to figure out that he was talking about me, but yeah, that's why I had to throw that in there.
No, it's funny. You know, we bring this up and we've talked about the dichotomy in the two camps. And I think you can tell when someone's in either camp when the award ceremony happens and when it's over. Because even little things around how they act when they receive the award, and probably more so when they post online afterward, there's two kinds of people, and you can tell during the award ceremony. There's the one that is truly surprised and genuinely and humbly happy, and then almost there's an air of expectation. And we've seen it a few times where folks are walking to the podium before the name's even announced. So, you know, I have friends on both sides of the aisle, but you can certainly tell and understand where those are. And more times than not, they're in the camp that are undervaluing their own work. And maybe that's in a sense a good thing, because it pushes you to go further. But certainly there's a lot of humble individuals out there. We've listed a few, and there's many more online. So if anything, keep sharing your work. We love to see it. And yeah.
What were we going to say, Scott?
I think that there's a bunch of people on this call that fall into that camp, really all of you. And, you know, John, when you and I talked with Adam Wilder, you know, he's a guy that questions his own work and the quality of his work. And I think that really speaks to kind of his character. But, you know, part of it is confidence, but I think part of it is we see things differently. You know, you guys might make a piece that maybe you don't feel as good about, and you know, we've sparred TJ especially, you know, because I really tend to really admire his work, his style, but I think he sees it differently than I do. I think that's genuinely a part of it, and part of it is he's humble. I love how this conversation kind of came around, but like I think just echo what everybody said. You know, I'd much rather be around people that are a little humble and maybe surprised when their work is recognized. And that's definitely how this group is. Whether each individual piece that we do, like Grant says, his latest piece isn't good. I mean, I just disagree with that 100%. I looked at a picture of it this morning, and again, I think we see things differently, and maybe it's just because, you know, we see it differently, or we just value it differently because we're not the ones invested. And it's easy for all of us because let's face it, we surround this community. This Posse community is full of really talented people, some of the best modelers and painters in the world. And it's easy to compare yourself and say, well, it's not very good. I mean, Stephen Reed, you called out Frank, and I agree with that. But Stephen Reed's another guy. Stephen Hustad, I mean, as good as he is, you know, Gary Baker, and, you know, guys that you see that are just really, really amazing modelers, they're the same way. You know, they look at, well, it's not really that good, and it's like, really? let me show you the definition of good. I think you've really nailed that. Great discussion point, TJ. And I like how our discussion points today kind of evolved into, maybe more organic discussions of other things. It was really, really interesting talk. Great job by you guys.
You all did all the work, did all the talking.
The Plastic Posse is just one of several great scale modeling podcasts. If you are interested in more scale modeling content, you can head over to modelpodcast.com, where you can find many links to many other podcasts about the hobby. The Posse also recommends several excellent modeling blogs, such as Stephen Lee's Sprue, Pie, and Frets, Chris Wallace's Model Airplane Maker, Scale Canadian Modeler TV with Mr. Jim Bates, and David Brian Bridges' DB Scale Modeling Studio blog.
Hey, Doug.
Scott.
What time is it?
Oh, it's merch time. If you would like to rep the Posse, check out our awesome merch on the Triple P Spring page. You can find coffee mugs, t-shirts, jumpers, even some of our world-famous Triple P lounge trousers. You can order all of your stylish Plastic Posse merch on the web at http. Just go to loungetrousers.com. And that'll get you right where you need to be.
Whoa,
that was good.
We got loungetrousers.com. We don't need to say all of this stuff. The whole point of having loungetrousers.com is to eliminate having to say all of that.
I don't think we have loungetrousers.com though.
We do. It works.
We do?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that listener that did it, it actually works.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, it redirects you to the Creator Spring page.
Amazing.
It's pretty cool.
Wow, you wouldn't think that we could have that.
It works. I just tried it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Doug, I sided with Doug on this one. Doug is correct. Do is correct.
Dude. Dang. I am due. That's going to be my biography. I am due, my autobiography of Doug Smith.
Guardians have a Groot. We have a do. I am due. I am due. I am due.
That's all I'm going to say from now on.
All right, let me fix this real quick. Thanks for riding along with us for episode 92 of the Plastic Posse. We appreciate your support as well as the support of our awesome patrons. We also want to thank Tankcraft, Tamiya USA, and AK Interactive for their support for what we do. And remember, the Plastic Posse is also available on YouTube. We will return in 2 weeks with more discussions about scale modeling. Do you have feedback, suggestions, ideas, or maybe you just want to drop us a line? Send us your feedback via email at plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com. Yeehaw!
Nice.
That's solid.
That's good.
One of the ways that you can help to support the Plastic Posse is to become a Plastic Posse Outrider. And if you want to become one, it's super easy. Just go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast, and you can set up a recurring donation there. These contributions help offset the cost of bringing you the Triple P. There are 3 different tiers of support that start at just $1 a month. There's also some great benefits to being an Outrider, like early access to podcasts, premium access to the hosts, the chance to appear on a podcast, and exclusive Triple P content and social events at model shows. We also recently dropped our inaugural PDF magazine called The Prospector, and this e-publication is a PDF that is only intended for our Triple P Patreons, and this should be probably a quarterly publication. I'll let JB speak to that, and it's going to feature bills, articles, and Triple P related content. The second issue is almost done. JB, give us an update.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, and as I mentioned last episode, it'll be big. It'll be out. Ideally, by the time this episode drops, it'll be on Patreon, and it will be featuring a lot of builds that we've know and a lot of shows that we've been to. So yes, just hold tight a little bit longer. Life has gotten in the way.
Let's recognize our amazing deputy marshals. These guys step up and help the posse do what we do, and we sincerely thank them for their support. They are Brian Clark, Shawn Earl, Black Hat Scale Models, Ben Hardaway, Craig Jarbo, Adam Jackson, Red Beach One Studios, James Morando, Casey Gray, Mike Norris, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Eric Cravina, John Hale, Eric Kane, Logan Hansen, Paul Burdett, Tim Gidcom, Dan Newen, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Greg Flynn, Scale Model Craft, Ken Childress, Nick Butta, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perone, The Voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Ryan Smith, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Ethan Idemill, Stephen Baker, Joe Porche, Patrick Brown, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Lee Fogel, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Toadman, ModelDoc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Les Ricala, John Everett, Uncle Buck, Mark Bradley, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Matt Johnston, Jeremy Ellett, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Dan Knopfel, and JC Osborne.
How about those posse foremen? These are the posse outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand, and we also thank them for their support. Special shout out to Russ, who joined our foreman during this recording. Thanks, Russ. We've got Mikkel, LeVar, Gil, Mike, Michael, Steve, Winston, Scott, Emery, The Krieger, Aussie Modeler, William, Keith, Sunkissed, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, Warhoff Models, G. Baker, Tom's Stuff, Crazy Loca, Len, Cliff, Damien, Ciaran, Cody, Tim, Nukeman, Mike, Greg, Ash, Irish Pat, Paul, Eyebones, Models, Mr. Grizz, Jackson, Joel, Chris, Robert, Jamie, Steve, MD Models, Papa Steve Munsell, JV, Eric, Matthew, and David.
And of course, our $1 and free Posse Outriders. We appreciate all of you. Lastly, a request for all our listeners. Would you please consider posting a review of the Triple P on your favorite podcast platform? Each 5-star review will help other modelers find the Plastic Posse.